The CEO stood at my door at 7 a.m. holding my daughter's stuffed rabbit, and I knew my carefully guarded world was about to shatter. What happens when the woman you fear most at work discovers the secret life you've been hiding? When professional boundaries collapse and the boss who never smiles sees you at your most vulnerable, in sweatpants, with pancake batter on your shirt, and a 6-year-old asking why the scary lady from Daddy's office is in their living room. This is the story of one knock that changed everything. If you're watching from anywhere in the world, drop your city in the comments. I want to see how far this story travels. And if it moves you, hit that like button. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. The coffee was still too hot to drink, but Ethan Cole lifted the mug to his lips anyway, seeking the bitter comfort of routine. 7:13 in the morning. Mia would be awake in exactly 12 minutes if the pattern held, and he'd have her breakfast ready by 7:30. Oatmeal with honey and sliced strawberries arranged in a smiley face, the only way she'd eat it without complaint. 3 years. 3 years of this precise choreography, this careful dance of single fatherhood where every step mattered because there was no one to catch either of them if he stumbled. The knock shattered his morning like a stone through glass. Ethan froze, the mug halfway to his mouth, steam curling past his unshaven jaw. Nobody knocked at 7:13. Nobody knocked at all, really. The neighbors kept to themselves, and the few friends he'd maintained from his previous life had learned not to drop by unannounced. Not after Sarah left. Not after he'd made it clear that his door and his life were carefully controlled spaces now. The knock came again, firmer this time. Deliberate. He set the mug down with fingers that had suddenly forgotten their steadiness and moved toward the door, his mind cycling through possibilities. A delivery driver with the wrong address, someone collecting for charity, a lost tourist, though they were miles from anything worth visiting. What he did not expect, what he could never have expected, was Lena Park. She stood on his doorstep like an apparition, somehow both perfectly in place and devastatingly out of context. The same woman who commanded boardrooms with a single glance, who could silence a room of executives with the slight raise of one eyebrow, who had built Meridian Solutions from a garage startup into a tech powerhouse through sheer force of will and a reputation for being absolutely, uncompromisingly exacting. Lena Park, his boss, his CEO, the woman whose calendar he managed, whose coffee preferences he'd memorized, whose approval he'd spent 3 years chasing and rarely achieving. Standing on his doorstep at 7:13 in the morning, in jeans. Ethan's brain stuttered over that detail. He'd never seen her in anything but precise, expensive suits, armor that announced her authority before she spoke a word. But here she was in dark jeans and a simple gray sweater, her usually immaculate hair pulled back in a casual ponytail, and in her hands, Mr. Flopsy, Ethan breathed, the name escaping before he could stop it. Lena looked down at the stuffed rabbit she held, its worn brown fur and one slightly askew button eye, suddenly the most important object in the universe. I believe this belongs to your daughter. Her voice was the same, that crisp, controlled tone that could deliver praise or criticism with equal precision. But something underneath it wavered, something almost uncertain. Ethan became suddenly, horrifyingly aware that he was standing in the doorway of his modest rental house in sweatpants and a faded university t-shirt with a coffee stain near the hem, unshaven, unprepared, completely and utterly exposed. The carefully maintained boundary between Ethan Cole, the competent executive assistant, and Ethan Cole, the barely holding it together. Single father had just evaporated. How did you... He started, then stopped. Because the how didn't matter as much as the fact that she was here, in his space, holding evidence of the life he'd worked so hard to keep separate from the polished, professional persona he wore to the office like a second skin. Last night, Lena said, and something in her expression shifted, a crack in her usual composure. The company mixer, your daughter was playing near the fountain while you were... She paused, and Ethan felt heat crawl up his neck as he remembered exactly what he'd been doing, desperately trying to prevent Marcus Chen from marketing from making a drunken toast that would have offended half the executive team. He'd turned his back on Mia for 5 minutes. 5 minutes. She dropped it, Lena continued. I found it after everyone left. I was going to bring it to the office, but then I thought... Another pause, longer this time. Children become attached to particular objects, transitional items. I researched it last night. If she wakes up without it, the disruption to her routine could cause significant distress. She'd researched it. Lena Park, who routinely worked 16-hour days and responded to emails at 3 in the morning, had spent her evening researching childhood attachment theory because his daughter had lost her stuffed rabbit. I don't understand, Ethan said, and he hated how his voice sounded. Small and confused, nothing like the efficient assistant who could handle 3 crisis calls simultaneously while reorganizing her entire quarterly schedule. Lena's eyes met his, and he saw something he'd never seen there before. Not in 3 years of daily interaction, of meetings and conference calls and late nights preparing presentations. Something that looked almost like vulnerability. Neither do I, she admitted quietly. A small voice called from upstairs, sleepy and worried. Daddy? Who's at the door? Ethan's entire body tensed. The worlds were colliding, the careful separation dissolving, and he couldn't stop it. He couldn't protect Mia from this intrusion, couldn't protect himself from whatever was about to happen. It's okay, sweetheart, he called back, his voice automatically shifting to the gentler tone he used with her. Just a friend from work. Lena's eyebrow rose slightly at the word friend, but she said nothing. Footsteps on the stairs, small feet in princess pajamas. Ethan turned to see Mia descending carefully, one hand on the railing like he'd taught her, her dark hair a wild nest around her face. She stopped 3 steps from the bottom, her brown eyes wide as she spotted the stranger in the doorway. You're the scary lady, Mia announced with the brutal honesty of 6-year-olds everywhere. To Ethan's absolute shock, Lena flinched, just slightly, just for a moment, but he saw it. A genuine reaction to the casual cruelty of a child's observation. Mia, Ethan said sharply, that's not polite. But Lena was already kneeling down, lowering herself to Mia's eye level with the same deliberate precision she brought to everything. She held out Mr. Flopsy. You left this behind, she said. I thought you might miss him. Mia's entire face transformed. She bounded down the remaining steps and snatched the rabbit, hugging it fiercely to her chest. Mr. Flopsy, Daddy, I thought he was gone forever. I know, baby, Ethan said, his throat suddenly tight. He'd spent 20 minutes last night searching the venue, had planned to go back this morning before work, had been preparing himself for Mia's heartbreak if he couldn't find it. Mia looked up at Lena with new eyes. You found him? I did. Then you're not scary, you're nice. Mia reached out and, before either adult could react, wrapped her small arms around Lena's neck. Ethan watched his boss, the woman who never touched anyone, who maintained a precise 3-foot radius of personal space at all times, who had once actually stepped back when an enthusiastic new hire attempted a handshake, freeze completely. Her arms hovered uncertainly at her sides, her expression cycling through confusion, panic, and something else. Something that looked like longing. Slowly, carefully, as if handling something infinitely fragile, Lena's arms came up and returned the embrace. Just for a moment. Just long enough for Ethan to see her eyes close, to see her face do something it never did. It softened. Thank you for bringing Mr. Flopsy home, Mia said, pulling back. Do you want pancakes? Daddy makes really good pancakes. He puts chocolate chips in them, even though Grandma says it's not nutritious. She pronounced the last word carefully, clearly parroting something she'd heard. Mia, Ethan interjected. I'm sure Ms. Park has to get to the office. I don't, Lena said abruptly. Then more carefully, I mean, I've cleared my morning for personal reasons. Ethan stared at her. Lena Park did not clear her mornings. Lena Park scheduled personal hygiene into her calendar and considered sleep a quarterly event. So you can have pancakes, Mia declared triumphantly. She grabbed Lena's hand, actually grabbed it, with sticky fingers that probably still had toothpaste residue on them, and started pulling her inside. Come see our kitchen. Daddy painted it yellow because he says sunshine makes breakfast better. Mia, we can't just... Ethan started, but Lena was already being towed across the threshold into his home, into the life he'd kept so carefully hidden. The door swung wider, revealing the chaos he'd tried to contain. Mia's backpack spilling school papers across the entryway table. His own laptop abandoned on the couch from last night's after-bedtime work session. The pile of laundry he'd been planning to fold. The crayon drawing of their family, stick figure Daddy and stick figure Mia, no one else, taped crookedly to the refrigerator. It was small and messy and nothing like the minimalist perfection of Meridian Solutions headquarters. It was real. And Lena Park was standing in the middle of it, looking around with an expression Ethan couldn't quite read. "Your home is," she began, then stopped. "A disaster," Ethan finished, resignation coloring his voice. "I know. I usually have it more together, but last night was warm," Lena said quietly. "I was going to say warm." The word hung in the air between them, laden with something Ethan didn't understand. He watched as Lena's gaze traveled over the lived-in clutter, the evidence of their life, the growth chart marked in crayon on the doorframe, the shelf of picture books with worn spines, the calendar on the wall covered in Mia's stickers, and his careful notations of school events and work meetings. "Ms. Park," Ethan said, trying to inject some professionalism into a situation that had careened entirely past professional, "I appreciate you returning Mr. Flopsy, but you really don't have to—" "Lena," she interrupted. "Here, you can call me Lena." Here, in his home, in this space that was supposed to be separate, protected. The walls he'd built were crumbling, and he didn't know how to stop it. Mia tugged on Lena's hand again. "Daddy, show Lena how you make the pancakes. Show her the special trick." "The special trick?" Lena asked, and there was something almost playful in her voice, an inflection he had never heard before. "He flips them really high," Mia said seriously. "Like super high. Sometimes they stick to the ceiling." "That happened once," Ethan protested. "One time, and I'd just gotten the burner replaced." "Show her," Mia insisted. And somehow, impossibly, Ethan found himself in his small kitchen with Lena Park watching as he tied on his apron, the ridiculous one with Grill Master emblazoned across the chest that Mia had picked out for his birthday, and began measuring flour. "You don't use a mix," Lena observed. "Mix doesn't taste right," Ethan replied, falling into the familiar rhythm. This he could do. This was muscle memory, the routine that grounded him every morning. "Mia can taste the difference." "Can you?" Lena asked his daughter, who had climbed onto her designated stool to watch. "Uh-huh. Daddy's taste like home. The ones Grandma makes from the box taste like sad." Lena's lips twitched, almost a smile. Almost. Sad does have a distinctive flavor. Ethan cracked eggs, measured vanilla, trying to process the surreal reality of preparing breakfast while his CEO leaned against his counter. She'd refused his offer of coffee, which was perhaps just as well since he only had the cheap grocery store brand, nothing like the precisely sourced single-origin beans she drank at the office. "Can I ask you something?" Lena said suddenly. Ethan's hand stilled on the whisk. "Of course. Why didn't you ever mention you had a daughter?" The question landed like a physical blow. Ethan forced himself to resume whisking, focusing on the smooth incorporation of wet and dry ingredients, buying himself time. "I mentioned her," he said carefully, "in my initial interview when you asked about my availability for extended travel. You said you had personal commitments that limited overnight trips," Lena recalled, her memory for detail as sharp as ever. "You never said you had a child. In 3 years, you've never once mentioned her by name. Because you never asked, Ethan thought, but didn't say. Because you don't ask about personal lives. Because the culture you've built doesn't leave room for children or complications or anything that might suggest we're human beings with existences outside our productivity metrics." But he couldn't say that. So instead, "I keep my personal and professional lives separate." "Why?" The whisk clinked against the bowl, metal on ceramic. "Because people make assumptions about single fathers, about whether we can really commit to demanding jobs, about whether we're reliable." He risked a glance at her. "About whether we'll always put our children first, which means we won't put the company first." "And do you?" Lena asked quietly. "Put her first?" Ethan met her gaze directly. "Always." He waited for the disappointment, the judgment, the subtle shift in her expression that would tell him he'd just confirmed every doubt she'd ever had about his dedication. Instead, Lena nodded slowly. Good, she said. That's good. Before Ethan could process that response, Mia piped up. Daddy had to leave work early last Tuesday because I threw up at school. Mrs. Henderson said it was probably the pizza from lunch, but I think it was because Tommy Wexler told me a scary story about zombies. Mia, Ethan warned. What? You did leave early. You told them it was a family emergency even though it was just puke. She turned to Lena. Do you ever throw up? Mia. Ethan felt his face burning. That's not an appropriate question. But Lena was studying Mia with an expression of fascination, as if she'd just encountered an entirely new species. Not recently, she answered seriously. The last time was probably 12 years ago, food poisoning from a hotel in Singapore. Did someone have to take care of you? No, I was alone. That's sad, Mia declared with the same certainty she'd pronounced judgment on box pancake mix. When I'm sick, Daddy stays home and we watch movies, and he makes me soup and checks my temperature every hour even when I tell him I'm fine. Lena's expression did something complicated. That sounds nice. Didn't your daddy do that when you were little? The silence that followed was profound. Ethan focused intently on pouring batter onto the heated griddle, giving Lena an escape from answering if she wanted it. No, Lena said finally. My father believed illness was something to overcome privately. Self-sufficiency was important in our household. That's a sad way to grow up, Mia said matter-of-factly. Mia, Ethan said more gently, everyone's family is different. But yours was sad different, Mia insisted with a child's inability to let go of a point. She looked at Lena seriously. Is that why you're the scary lady? Because nobody took care of you when you were sick? Lena started, then stopped. For the first time in 3 years of working together, Ethan saw her at a loss for words. The pancakes are ready, he interjected, sliding a perfectly golden disc onto a plate. Mia, set the table, please. His daughter scrambled to obey, pulling out plates and forks with the efficiency of long practice. Ethan plated the pancakes, added strawberries and a small dollop of whipped cream, and brought everything to their tiny kitchen table, a round wooden thing he'd bought secondhand and refinished himself. You're really staying for breakfast? He asked Lena quietly while Mia arranged napkins with great concentration. If the invitation still stands. I just can't figure out why you'd want to. Lena looked at him, and in her eyes he saw something raw and honest. Because I've spent 3 years watching you live 2 lives. The professional one you bring to the office, the competent, unflappable assistant who never complains and never makes mistakes. And this one, the one you hide. I want to understand why you split yourself in half. Don't we all? Ethan countered. Split ourselves? Show different faces in different places? Most people don't do it as completely as you do. Most people mention their children, bring in school photos, talk about their weekends. You're like 2 entirely different people. Because I have to be, Ethan thought. Because the world doesn't make space for single fathers who need flexibility and understanding. Because I learned that showing my whole self meant being seen as unreliable, distracted, not committed enough. But before he could formulate a response that wouldn't sound bitter, Mia called out, Daddy, stop talking boring work stuff. The pancakes are getting cold. Lena smiled, actually smiled, a genuine expression that transformed her entire face. She's right. We shouldn't let them get cold. They sat down together at the small table, Mia chattering about her upcoming field trip to the Science Museum, Ethan cutting her pancakes into bite-sized pieces out of habit, even though she insisted she was big enough to do it herself, Lena sitting with perfect posture and watching everything with those sharp, analytical eyes. These are exceptional, Lena said after her first bite. They're just pancakes, Ethan demurred. No, they're really not. She took another bite, chewing thoughtfully. There's cinnamon and something else, nutmeg? A tiny amount most people don't notice. I notice details. I know, Ethan said, then realized how that sounded, how it revealed the careful attention he paid to her, the way he'd studied her preferences and patterns over 3 years. I mean, in general, you're very observant. Do you like working for my daddy? Mia asked Lena suddenly. What? Lena blinked. Daddy works for you, right? So do you like it? Is he good at his job? Lena set down her fork with precise care. Your father is the best assistant I've ever had. The company would likely collapse into chaos without him. Then why don't you pay him more? Mia asked with devastating innocence. He says we can't get a bigger house because houses cost too much money and I want a backyard with a swing set. Ethan closed his eyes. Mia, that's not... We don't discuss... She's asking a fair question, Lena interrupted. She turned to Mia. You're right. If someone is essential to an organization's functioning, they should be compensated accordingly. I'll look into that. You don't have to... Ethan started. I do, actually. If what she's saying is true, if financial constraints are affecting your housing situation, then there's been an oversight in compensation structure. Lots of people have financial constraints, Ethan said, discomfort making his voice sharper than intended. It's not your responsibility to... You manage my life, Lena said quietly. You know my schedule better than I do. You anticipate problems before they occur. You've saved me from countless disasters through sheer competence and discretion, and I've never once asked you what your life costs, what it requires. Her gaze moved around the small kitchen, taking in the evidence of careful budgeting, the appliances that were functional but not new, the dishes that didn't match, the single coffee maker that was clearly working overtime. That was an oversight on my part. The words sat between them, heavy with implications Ethan wasn't ready to examine. Daddy cried last month, Mia offered, apparently committed to destroying every boundary. When the car made the funny noise and he had to pay lots of money to fix it, he didn't think I heard, but I did. Mia, Ethan said, his voice strained. Please. But his daughter was on a roll. And sometimes he doesn't eat dinner because he says he's not hungry, but I think it's because he wants to make sure there's enough for me. And he always buys me new shoes when I need them, but his have holes in the bottom. I saw. Ethan wanted the floor to open up and swallow him. This was exactly what he'd spent 3 years preventing. This exposure, this vulnerability, this proof that he was struggling, that the polished professional facade was just that, a facade covering desperation and constant worry and the exhausting mathematics of single parenthood. Lena was very still, her expression unreadable. I'm fine, Ethan said firmly. We're fine. Mia, finish your breakfast. You have school in 45 minutes. But now, please. Something in his tone must have communicated that he was at his limit because Mia subsided, returning her attention to her pancakes with exaggerated focus. Ethan stood abruptly, needing to move, needing to do something with his hands. He began clearing dishes, running water in the sink, anything to avoid the weight of Lena's gaze. I should get ready for work, he said to no one in particular. If you'll excuse me, I need to help Mia get dressed, and I can help her, Lena said. Ethan turned, certain he'd misheard. What? I can help her get ready for school. If you'll permit it, that way you can prepare for the day. You don't know how to help a 6-year-old get ready for school. I can follow instructions. I assume there's a routine. Mia bounced in her seat. Can she help me pick my outfit? Please, Daddy. I want to show her my new dress with the sparkles. This was spiraling beyond Ethan's control. His boss in his home, eating his pancakes, offering to help dress his daughter. The morning had become surreal. Fine, he heard himself say. Mia, show Lena your room. Clothes are in the dresser. School uniform polo, navy or white, and the plaid skirt. Tights because it's cold. Hair needs to be brushed and put in a ponytail. I can manage that, Lena said, with the same confidence she brought to merger negotiations. Ethan watched his daughter grab Lena's hand again and lead her toward the stairs, chattering about her collection of hair ribbons. Then he was alone in his kitchen, staring at 3 plates with syrup and crumbs, trying to understand how his carefully ordered life had been upended before 8 in the morning. He moved through his routine automatically. Shower, shave, the quick efficiency of someone who'd learned to prepare for work in minimal time. He dressed in his usual work uniform, pressed slacks, button-down shirt, the professional armor that helped him become the person Meridian Solutions needed him to be. From upstairs, he heard Mia's laughter and Lena's voice, lower and harder to make out. A crash, then Mia calling out, "It's okay, we just knocked over the jewelry box." Ethan closed his eyes and counted to 10. When he emerged from his bedroom, he found an unexpected scene. Lena sitting on the floor of Mia's small room, surrounded by an explosion of necklaces, bracelets, and plastic gems, helping his daughter sort them back into compartments. The pink ones go here, Mia was explaining, and the silver ones go in this section, but the broken ones go in this bag because Daddy says he'll fix them when he has time, but he's been busy for like 100 years. Organizational systems are important, Lena said seriously, placing a plastic tiara in its designated spot. Chaos leads to inefficiency. She looked up and saw Ethan in the doorway. Their eyes met, and something passed between them. An acknowledgement of how strange this was, how unprecedented, how it couldn't possibly mean what it seemed to mean. "She's almost ready," Lena said, standing with unconscious grace. "Her backpack is by the door. I checked to make sure she has her homework. There's a math worksheet and a reading log. The lunch you packed is in the refrigerator. She needs to remember her library book for return." Ethan blinked. "How do you—" "She told me, and there's a note on the refrigerator with today's checklist." Lena brushed imaginary dust from her jeans. "I'm good at following systems." Mia appeared, fully dressed, hair in a slightly crooked but passable ponytail, grinning triumphantly. "Lena helped me, and she's going to come back and have dinner with us." What?" Ethan looked at Lena. "I suggested it might be pleasant," Lena said calmly, but there was uncertainty in her eyes. "If you're amenable, as thanks for breakfast." "You don't have to thank me for pancakes." "Perhaps I want to." The words hung in the air, laden with subtext Ethan couldn't quite grasp. This woman who never revealed anything personal, who maintained rigid boundaries, who treated her own life like a series of optimized processes, she wanted to come back to his chaotic, cramped, real home for dinner. "Why?" he asked quietly while Mia searched for her shoes. Lena was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "Because I've spent my entire life in spaces that feel like your office. Perfect. Controlled. Empty. And this—" She gestured around the small room with its mess of toys and books and life. "This feels like something I've been missing, something I didn't know existed." Before Ethan could respond, Mia reappeared, shoes on the wrong feet. He knelt automatically to fix them, his hands gentle, practiced. "Okay," he said, not looking up. "Dinner, but nothing fancy. We're having spaghetti and it comes from a jar." "I like spaghetti," Lena said, and there was something almost shy in her voice. The morning proceeded in a blur, getting Mia to school, both of them in Ethan's aging sedan with Lena in the back seat, watching as he walked Mia to the entrance and received his daily hug and "love you, Daddy," before she disappeared into the building. When he returned to the car, Lena was staring at the school building with an odd expression. "She tells you she loves you," Lena observed. "Every day?" "Every day," Ethan confirmed, starting the engine. "That must be grounding." "It's everything," Ethan said simply. They drove in silence for a few minutes before Lena spoke again. "I meant what I said about reviewing your compensation." "You don't have to do that." "I do. Because Mia was right. If you're struggling financially while being essential to my company's operations, that's a failure on my part." She paused. "I've been so focused on efficiency metrics and productivity data that I've forgotten to look at the actual lives behind the numbers." "Most companies work that way," Ethan said carefully. "That doesn't make it right." They pulled into the Meridian Solutions parking garage, returning to the world where their roles were clear and defined. But something had shifted. The boundary had been crossed, and Ethan suspected there was no going back to the comfortable distance of before. As they rode the elevator to the executive floor, Lena spoke quietly. "Thank you for this morning, for letting me see my disaster of a life," Ethan supplied wryly. "Your real life," Lena corrected. "There's a difference." The elevator doors opened onto the sleek, modern lobby, all glass and steel and carefully curated minimalism, the absolute opposite of Ethan's warm, cluttered home. 7 o'clock, Lena said as they walked toward their respective offices. "For dinner, should I bring anything?" "Just yourself," Ethan said, then wondered when he'd become so bold. "The real version, if she wants to visit again." Lena paused at her office door, turned back. She does, she said quietly. She very much does. Then she was gone, disappearing into her domain, leaving Ethan standing in the hallway trying to understand what had just happened to his carefully compartmentalized existence. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Thank you for the pancakes, and for letting me be part of something real, even briefly. Ethan stared at the message, at the careful formality that couldn't quite hide the vulnerability underneath. His boss had his personal number. They'd exchanged contact information years ago for emergencies, but she'd never used it for anything personal before. He typed back, "See you at 7. Fair warning, Mia will talk your ear off." The response came immediately. "I'm looking forward to it." And somehow, impossibly, Ethan believed her. The office felt different that day, though nothing had physically changed. The same minimalist furniture, the same precisely arranged meeting rooms, the same hushed efficiency that characterized Meridian Solutions' executive floor. But Ethan moved through it like a stranger in familiar territory, hyper-aware of every interaction, every glance exchanged with Lena across conference tables and through glass walls. She was back in her armor, a charcoal suit that probably cost more than his monthly rent, her hair in its usual sleek bun, every inch the formidable CEO who had built an empire through sheer determination. But Ethan had seen her sitting on his daughter's bedroom floor sorting plastic jewelry. He'd watched her carefully cut pancakes into precise bites. He'd heard the wistfulness in her voice when she admitted no one had taken care of her when she was sick. The armor was thinner now, transparent. "Ethan," she said crisply as he delivered her afternoon espresso, "double shot, no sugar, exactly 160 degrees. I need you to clear my schedule from 6:30 onward tonight." He paused, the calendar already pulled up on his tablet. "You have the Silverman call at 7. They've been trying to schedule for 3 weeks. Reschedule it. And the quarterly review prep will wait." She looked up from her laptop, her expression unreadable. "Unless you're rescinding the dinner invitation?" "No," Ethan said quickly. Too quickly. He cleared his throat. "No, of course not. I just thought you might have reconsidered." "Why would I reconsider?" "Because this is insane," Ethan wanted to say. "Because CEOs don't have dinner with their assistants' families. Because you've spent 3 years maintaining absolute professional distance, and now you're asking to eat jarred spaghetti sauce at my kitchen table." "No reason," he said instead. "I'll move the Silverman call to Thursday." Lena nodded, returning her attention to her screen. But as Ethan turned to leave, she spoke again. "Does Mia have any dietary restrictions I should know about?" The question was so unexpected, so thoughtful, that Ethan felt something shift in his chest. "She's going through a phase where she won't eat anything green. Claims broccoli is poisonous tree candy." The corner of Lena's mouth twitched. "Creative. That's one word for it. And you? Any restrictions?" "I eat whatever doesn't eat me first," Ethan said, then immediately regretted the flippancy. But Lena actually smiled, small but genuine. "Good to know. I'll avoid bringing anything carnivorous." As Ethan left her office, he caught Jennifer from accounting watching them with undisguised curiosity. Word would spread, he knew. The CEO's assistant entering her office twice in 5 minutes, the unusual warmth in their exchange. The rumor mill would be churning by lunch. Let them talk. For once, Ethan was too tired to care about maintaining the careful facade. The afternoon crawled by with excruciating slowness. Ethan fielded calls, managed crises, reorganized Lena's week to accommodate the suddenly blocked evening, but his mind kept drifting to his home, running through mental inventories. Did he have enough pasta? Was the apartment clean enough? Should he attempt something more impressive than spaghetti? At 4:30, his phone rang. Mia's school. His heart seized. It always did when that number appeared, conditioned by 3 years of emergency calls about playground accidents and sudden fevers and the constant low-grade terror of single parenthood. "Mr. Cole? This is Principal Hendricks. Is Mia all right?" The words came automatically, urgent. "She's fine. But we need you to come pick her up. She's had a difficult afternoon." "Difficult how?" A pause. "She's been crying since lunch. We can't seem to calm her down, and she's asking for you." Ethan was already grabbing his jacket, his keys. "I'm on my way. 15 minutes." He appeared in Lena's doorway without knocking, a breach of protocol that would normally be unthinkable. She looked up, immediately alert. "I have to leave. Mia's school called. Something's wrong." Lena stood immediately. "Go. Do what you need to do." "I'm sorry, I know we have the Patel presentation at 5. I can try to reschedule." "Ethan." Her voice was firm, but not unkind. "Go to your daughter. I'll handle the presentation." "You haven't reviewed the materials? Then forward them to me now, and I'll review them in the next 20 minutes. I didn't build this company without being able to adapt." She moved around her desk, her expression concerned. "Is she hurt?" "They said she's crying. Can't stop. I don't..." His voice cracked slightly. "I don't know what's wrong." "Then go find out. Everything else can wait." Ethan fled, barely registering the curious looks as he rushed through the office. The drive to Mia's school normally took 20 minutes in traffic, but he made it in 12, his hands tight on the wheel, his mind cycling through worst-case scenarios. Principal Hendricks met him at the office, her expression sympathetic. "She's in the nurse's room. No physical injuries, but she's been inconsolable." Ethan found his daughter curled in a chair, her face blotchy and wet. Mr. Flopsy clutched to her chest. The sight of her distress hit him like a physical blow. "Baby," he said softly, kneeling beside her. "What happened?" Mia launched herself at him, wrapping her arms around his neck and sobbing into his shoulder. He held her, one hand rubbing circles on her back the way he'd done since she was an infant. "I've got you," he murmured. "Daddy's here. I've got you." It took 10 minutes for the crying to subside into hiccups, another 5 for her to be able to speak. "Tommy Wexler said..." She gulped air. "He said that mommies who leave don't ever come back. He said his uncle left and now he's gone forever. And that means my mommy is gone forever too." Ethan's heart fractured. This conversation. He'd been dreading this conversation since Sarah walked out 3 years ago with nothing but a note and a forwarding address for legal documents. And then Katie Morrison said that kids without mommies are weird, and everybody laughed, and I tried not to cry, but I couldn't help it. And then Mrs. Patterson sent me to the office for disrupting class, but I wasn't trying to disrupt. I was just sad. "I know, sweetheart, I know." Ethan pulled back just enough to look at her face, to wipe her tears with his thumbs. "Tommy Wexler doesn't know what he's talking about. Every family is different." "But is mommy gone forever?" The question he'd been avoiding for 3 years, rendered unavoidable by the cruelty of first-grade social dynamics. "I don't know," Ethan said honestly, because he'd promised himself he'd never lie to her. "She made a choice to leave, and I don't know if she'll make a different choice someday. But I do know that I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere, ever. Promise?" "Promise. You're stuck with me until you're old and gray and tired of me embarrassing you at your college graduation." Mia managed a watery smile. "That's really old. Ancient. Practically dust." She rested her head against his chest, exhausted from crying. "I miss having a mommy." The words devastated him as they always did when she voiced the absence that shaped their lives. "I know you do, and that's okay. It's okay to miss her, and it's okay to be sad sometimes, and it's okay to wish things were different." "Do other kids think I'm weird?" "Some might. Some people don't understand that families come in all different shapes and sizes. But the people who matter, the people who are worth your time, they won't care that our family looks different from theirs." Mia was quiet for a moment, then, "Is Lena coming to dinner because she feels sorry for us? Because we don't have a mommy?" The question caught Ethan off guard. "What? No, why would you think that?" "Because she's rich and important and we're just normal. Katie Morrison says rich people only help regular people when they feel sorry for them, like charity." Ethan bit back several unkind thoughts about Katie Morrison. "Lena is coming to dinner because she's interested in getting to know us better, not because she feels sorry for us. We're not a charity case, Mia. We're doing just fine." Even as he said it, he wondered if it was true. Were they doing fine, or had he just gotten good at pretending? He signed Mia out of school, carried her to the car despite her protests that she was big enough to walk. The drive home was quiet. Mia staring out the window with the contemplative sadness that always followed these episodes. His phone buzzed as he pulled into the driveway. A text from Lena. Patel presentation went well. How is Mia? He stared at the message, touched that she'd thought to ask. Better now. Thank you for covering. Of course. See you at 7? Ethan looked at his daughter, small and sad in the back seat. Can we rain check? It's been a rough day. The response came quickly. Absolutely. Take care of her. But before Ethan could set down his phone, another message appeared. Unless... Would it help if I brought dinner instead? No pressure, but sometimes having something to look forward to helps. At least I imagine it would. Ethan read the message twice, hearing the uncertainty in it, the almost hopeful tone. Lena Park, asking permission to bring dinner, admitting she was guessing at what might help because she had no personal experience to draw from. He looked at Mia again. Hey baby, how would you feel if Lena still came over tonight? She'd bring dinner so Daddy doesn't have to cook. Mia perked up slightly. Would she bring fancy food? I don't know. Want me to ask her? A small nod. Ethan texted back, what kind of dinner are we talking about? I have no idea. I've never brought anyone dinner before. What do people bring? Pizza? Chinese food? I could have my chef prepare something. Despite everything, Ethan smiled. Please don't send your personal chef to my rental house. Pizza is perfect. Mia likes pepperoni. Pizza it is. 7 o'clock. See you then. Ethan pocketed his phone and unbuckled Mia from her seat. Pizza's coming at 7, with Lena. Is she going to ask me about Mommy? The question was small, worried. Ethan cupped her face gently. Not if you don't want her to, and if she does, you can tell her it's private. You're allowed to have private things. Even from rich people? Especially from rich people. Privacy isn't about how much money you have. Inside the house, Ethan ran Mia a bath with extra bubbles, her favorite comfort ritual, and let her play longer than usual while he tidied the living room with frantic efficiency. The morning's chaos had been one thing. Inviting Lena back into it after a crisis felt different, more vulnerable. By 6:30, Mia was in fresh pajamas, her hair still damp, curled on the couch with Mr. Flopsy and a picture book. She looked fragile, hollowed out by the afternoon's emotional storm. Do I have to tell her what happened? Mia asked quietly. Not unless you want to. What if she asks why my eyes are puffy? Ethan sat beside her, pulling her close. Then I'll handle it. You don't have to explain yourself to anyone, sweetheart. Not ever. The knock came at exactly 7 o'clock. Of course it did. Lena Park was nothing if not punctual. Ethan opened the door to find her in jeans again. Different ones, darker, paired with a soft blue sweater that made her look younger, less severe. In her hands were 3 pizza boxes and a bag that smelled suspiciously like garlic bread. I wasn't sure what kind you'd like, she said, almost apologetically. So I got pepperoni, cheese, and something called Supreme, though I'm not entirely certain what makes it Supreme. You brought 3 pizzas for 3 people? Is that too much? She looked genuinely uncertain, and Ethan realized she probably had no frame of reference for normal family dinner portions. It's perfect, he said, stepping aside to let her in. Leftovers are a gift. Lena entered, and her gaze immediately found Mia on the couch. Ethan watched as she took in the puffy eyes, the tired posture, the way his daughter clutched Mr. Flopsy like a lifeline. Rough day? Lena asked gently, setting the pizzas on the kitchen counter. Mia nodded but didn't elaborate. I have those too, Lena said, surprising them both. Days where everything feels heavy, and the only thing that helps is pizza and quiet. Really? Mia's voice was small. But you're a CEO. Don't you have to be happy all the time? Lena moved to sit on the edge of the coffee table, facing Mia directly. Being a CEO doesn't mean I don't have feelings. It just means I've gotten very good at hiding them. But that doesn't make them go away. What do you do when you're sad? Honestly, I work. I throw myself into spreadsheets and strategy meetings and convince myself that productivity is the same as feeling better. Lena paused. But I'm starting to think that might not be the healthiest approach. Mia considered this. Daddy says feelings are supposed to be felt, not hidden. He says stuffing them down is like putting trash in a closet. Eventually, the closet gets full and everything falls out. Lena's eyes flicked to Ethan, something unreadable in her expression. Your father is a wise man. He's okay, Mia said, with the casual dismissiveness of children everywhere. Can we eat now? I'm hungry. They settled around the kitchen table, the same one from breakfast, though it felt like years had passed since then rather than hours. Ethan served slices, poured juice for Mia and water for the adults, fell into the comfortable rhythm of caretaking. This is good, Mia announced around a mouthful of pepperoni. Thank you for bringing it. You're welcome, Lena said. Thank you for sharing your evening with me. I know you didn't plan on having company. Are you our company or our friend? Mia asked with characteristic bluntness. Lena set down her slice, considering the question with the same seriousness she'd bring to a board meeting. I'd like to be your friend, if you'll have me. Friends share secrets, Mia said solemnly. Do you have any secrets? Mia, Ethan warned. That's personal. But Lena was already answering. I do. Would you like to hear one? Mia nodded eagerly, the afternoon's sadness momentarily forgotten. I'm lonely, Lena said quietly. Very lonely. I've built a successful company and accumulated more money than I could spend in 5 lifetimes, but I don't have anyone to eat pizza with. Before today, I couldn't remember the last time I ate a meal with another person outside of a business function. The confession hung in the air, stark and honest. Ethan stared at her, this woman he'd worked beside for 3 years without really seeing her. That's really sad, Mia said, echoing her earlier assessment. Don't you have any family? My parents are still alive, but we're not close. And I never married, never had children. I told myself it was because I was too busy building the company, but truthfully, I don't think I knew how. My parents weren't particularly demonstrative with affection. I grew up thinking love was something you earned through achievement, not something freely given. That's backwards, Mia declared. Love isn't about earning, it's just there. Like, Daddy loves me even when I get bad grades or make mistakes or have days like today where I cry at school. Does that happen often? Lena asked carefully. The crying at school? Mia looked down at her pizza. Ethan tensed, ready to intervene, but his daughter surprised him. Sometimes kids say mean things about me not having a mom, and sometimes it makes me sad. But Daddy says that's okay, that being sad is allowed. Lena was very still. Those kids are wrong to be unkind. Families come in many forms. The shape doesn't matter nearly as much as the love inside them. That's what Daddy says too, Mia brightened. Are you sure you've never had kids? You sound like a parent. Quite sure. But I had parents, even if they weren't particularly good at it. I learned what not to do at least. What would you do different? Mia asked. If you had a kid? The question was innocent, curious, but Ethan saw it land on Lena like a weight. She was quiet for a long moment, her fingers tracing the edge of her paper plate. I would tell them I loved them, she said finally. Every day, multiple times. I would make sure they knew that my love wasn't contingent on their performance or achievements, that they could fail every test, make every mistake, disappoint me 1,000 times, and I would still love them. Her voice grew softer. I would hold them when they cried instead of telling them to compose themselves. I would let them be messy and loud and imperfect. I would choose them over work, always, every time. The raw honesty in her words created a silence that felt sacred. Ethan realized he was holding his breath. You should get a kid, Mia said matter-of-factly. You'd be good at it. Lena's laugh was surprised and genuine. I think I'm a bit old to start now. Daddy says it's never too late to change your life. He was 32 when he became a full-time daddy, and he says it was the best choice he ever made, even though it's really hard sometimes. Is that what he says? Lena's eyes found Ethan's across the table. Among other things, Ethan said dryly, usually at 3 in the morning when you can't sleep and decide to repeat every conversation you've ever heard. I have good memory, Mia said proudly. Daddy also says that people who work too much are running away from something, and that money doesn't buy happiness, and that the most important thing in life is being able to look at yourself in the mirror and like who you see. Does he now? Lena's expression was unreadable. Ethan felt heat creep up his neck. I may have been doing some thinking out loud during some difficult moments. Sounds like wise thinking. They finished dinner in more comfortable silence, Mia's energy slowly returning as sugar and normalcy worked their magic. She insisted on showing Lena her collection of rocks, special ones collected from various meaningful locations, and explained in detail the difference between sedimentary and igneous formations with the confidence of someone who'd watched one too many geology documentaries. Lena listened with the same focused attention she brought to quarterly earnings reports, asking questions, admiring specimens, treating Mia's treasures with genuine respect. "You're good with her," Ethan observed quietly as Mia ran to her room to retrieve another box of collections. "I'm following her lead. She makes it easy. Most people don't have the patience. Most people didn't grow up in a house where children were expected to be miniature adults." Lena's expression was distant. "I appreciate her honesty, her willingness to just be herself without calculation. 6-year-olds are good at that." "So are you." Ethan looked at her sharply. "What?" "You're authentic. Even at work, when you're being professional and efficient, there's something fundamentally genuine about you. You don't play political games, you don't manipulate or scheme, you just do the work and tell the truth." Lena met his gaze. "Do you know how rare that is?" "I don't have the energy for games," Ethan admitted. "Between single parenting and a demanding job, there's no bandwidth left for office politics." "Is it lonely, the way you split yourself between home and work?" The question surprised him with its perceptiveness. "Yes," he said simply. "Very lonely. I have coworkers but not friends. People I'm friendly with but who don't really know me. You're the first person from the office who's ever been here, seen this part of my life." "Why me?" "I've been asking myself that all day." Ethan ran a hand through his hair. "If I'm being honest, I think because you already broke through the wall this morning. Once you'd seen this," he gestured around the small lived-in space, "there didn't seem to be much point in hiding it anymore." "Does it bother you? That I know now?" "I haven't decided yet," Ethan said truthfully. "Part of me is terrified. Part of me is relieved." Before Lena could respond, Mia returned with a shoebox full of leaves pressed between wax paper, each labeled with location and date in Ethan's careful handwriting. The evening drifted into comfortable domesticity. Lena sat on the floor with Mia, examining treasures and listening to stories. Ethan cleaned up from dinner, watching them from the kitchen, trying to reconcile this relaxed, engaged woman with the austere CEO who'd terrified him for 3 years. At 8:30, Mia's bedtime, he intervened gently. "Time for teeth brushing, kiddo." The protest was automatic but half-hearted. Mia was flagging, the emotional exhaustion of the day catching up with her. "Will you come back?" she asked Lena. "Tomorrow?" "I don't think—" Ethan started, but Lena spoke over him. "I'd like that, if your father agrees." Mia turned hopeful eyes on Ethan. "Please? She didn't get to see my science project yet, and I want to show her the book I'm reading, and—" "We'll see," Ethan said, the parent's eternal non-answer. "Brush your teeth. I'll be up in a minute." Mia hugged Lena goodnight, another spontaneous embrace that left his boss looking surprised and almost fragile, then thundered up the stairs. Alone with Lena for the first time since morning, Ethan felt the weight of everything unsaid pressing down. "You don't have to come back," he said quietly. "I know this isn't normal for either of us." "What's normal?" Lena countered. "Working 16-hour days and going home to an empty apartment, eating dinner alone over my laptop, having no one who cares if I'm sick or sad or struggling?" She stood, brushing off her jeans. "That's been my normal for 40 years, Ethan, and I'm starting to think it shouldn't be." "I'm not a charity case," he said, old defensiveness rising. "I know you don't need me," Lena interrupted. "You've been managing perfectly well without any help from anyone. Thank you very much. But maybe I need this. Maybe I need to remember what it feels like to be part of something real." The vulnerability in her voice stopped his protest cold. "I should go," Lena said, moving toward the door. "But I meant what I said, about coming back, not because I feel sorry for you." She looked at him directly. but because being here with you and Mia is the first time in longer than I can remember that I've felt like a person instead of a position. Ethan walked her to the door, his mind spinning. On the threshold, Lena paused. The compensation review, she said. I'm moving forward with it. And before you protest, it's not charity, it's correcting an oversight. You're undervalued, valued, and that's on me. Lena, I also want to implement some policy changes. Flexible scheduling, real family leave, support for single parents. Her eyes were fierce now, determined. Mia mentioned you couldn't afford a house with a backyard. That's unconscionable. Someone working full-time for my company should be able to provide adequately for their child. You can't restructure company policy because of one employee's situation. I can do whatever I want. I'm the CEO. But her expression softened. And it's not just you, Ethan. How many others are struggling in silence? How many have learned to hide their lives the way you have because the culture doesn't make room for humanity? She was right, and they both knew it. Ethan had spent 3 years watching other employees perform the same careful compartmentalization, the same desperate juggling act. Thank you, he said finally, for seeing us, for caring. Thank you for letting me in. Lena stepped out into the cool evening air, then turned back one more time. Tomorrow evening, if the offer stands. It stands, Ethan heard himself say. But fair warning, tomorrow is leftover night. It won't be fancy. I don't want fancy, Lena said quietly. I want real. He watched her walk to her car, a sleek Tesla that looked absurdly out of place on his modest street, and drive away. Then he stood in his doorway for a long moment, trying to process the seismic shift in his carefully ordered world. Upstairs, Mia called for him. He climbed the stairs to find her in bed, Mr. Flopsy tucked beside her, her eyes already heavy. Is Lena our friend now? She asked sleepily as he sat on the edge of her bed. I think so, baby. Good. She needs us. The simple wisdom of it struck him. Yeah, he said softly. I think she does. We need her too, Mia added, her voice fading. She makes you smile. You don't smile enough, Daddy. Ethan stroked her hair, his throat tight. Sleep now. Big day tomorrow. But Mia was already drifting off, her breathing evening out into the peaceful rhythm of childhood sleep. Ethan sat there for a while, watching her, marveling at her resilience. A few hours ago, she'd been crying about her mother's absence. Now she was befriending a billionaire CEO and dispensing wisdom about friendship. Downstairs, his phone buzzed. Another message from Lena. I forgot to ask, is there anything Mia needs? For school or otherwise? I realize that's forward, but the offer is genuine. Ethan stared at the message, torn between pride and practicality. They did need things. Her winter coat was too small, the heater in his car was dying, the list was endless. But accepting help meant admitting vulnerability, meant acknowledging that he couldn't do this alone, no matter how hard he tried. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. Finally, he typed, "We're okay. But thank you for asking. That means more than you know." The response was immediate. The offer stands. Always. Ethan set down his phone and looked around his small, cluttered, imperfect home. For 3 years, he'd built walls to protect this space, to keep his professional and personal lives separate. And in one day, Lena Park had walked through those walls like they were paper. The terrifying thing wasn't that she'd seen his struggles. It was that she'd seen them and stayed anyway. Had seen the reality of his life, the financial stress, the emotional exhaustion, the constant fear of not being enough, and asked to come back. He thought about what Mia had said. She needs us. Maybe that was the key. Maybe this wasn't about charity or pity. Maybe it was about two different kinds of loneliness, recognizing each other. Lena had spent her life building an empire, but forgetting to build a home. Ethan had built a home, but had no one to share it with except a 6-year-old who deserved more than a father struggling to hold everything together alone. His phone buzzed one more time. Sleep well, Ethan. Thank you for today. All of it. He smiled despite himself, despite the chaos and uncertainty and the voice in his head warning that this couldn't end well. See you tomorrow, he replied. And for the first time in 3 years, the silence of his evening didn't feel quite so heavy. Tomorrow came with the weight of inevitability. Ethan woke before his alarm, staring at the ceiling in the pre-dawn darkness, his mind already racing through the implications of what he'd allowed to happen. 2 dinners, 2 intrusions into his carefully guarded sanctuary. And worse, much worse, the realization that he was looking forward to seeing Lena again, not as his boss, but as the woman who'd sat on his kitchen floor sorting plastic jewelry with his daughter. The morning routine unfolded with mechanical precision: wake Mia, breakfast, the careful negotiation of what constituted appropriate school attire, the drive through morning traffic. But Ethan's thoughts were elsewhere, cycling through scenarios, preparing defenses against a vulnerability he hadn't asked for but couldn't seem to prevent. At the office, Lena was already in her glass-walled domain when he arrived, her silhouette sharp against the morning light. She looked up as he passed, and their eyes met for a fraction of a second, long enough for something to pass between them that had nothing to do with quarterly reports or scheduling conflicts. Professional distance. That's what they needed. A return to the clear boundaries that had served them well for 3 years. The thought lasted exactly until 10:30, when Lena appeared at his desk with a file folder. "The Henderson contract needs your review," she said, her voice carefully neutral. "And I've scheduled the compensation audit for next Monday. You don't have to. We discussed this." Her tone left no room for argument. "It's happening." Ethan took the folder, hyper-aware of Jennifer and Marcus watching from their nearby desks. The office gossip network was probably already speculating about the CEO's unusual attention to her assistant. 7 o'clock tonight? Lena asked quietly, so only he could hear. "Unless circumstances have changed." "They haven't," Ethan said, then wondered why he felt relieved instead of apprehensive. She nodded once and walked away, leaving him holding a file he couldn't focus on because his mind was too busy trying to understand how his life had become this complicated in less than 48 hours. The day dragged with the peculiar slowness of anticipation. Conference calls blurred together, emails piled up faster than he could answer them. And through it all, Ethan remained aware of Lena's presence just beyond the glass walls, a constant, confusing reminder that the worlds he'd kept separate were now irrevocably merged. At 3 o'clock his phone rang. Mia's school again. His stomach dropped, conditioned by yesterday's crisis. "Mr. Cole speaking." "Hi, this is Mrs. Patterson, Mia's teacher." Her voice was warm, not alarmed. "Everything's fine, but I wanted to let you know that Mia had a wonderful day today. She shared about her new friend during circle time and seemed much happier than yesterday." Ethan's relief was palpable. "That's good to hear. Thank you for calling." "Of course. Oh, and she mentioned that her friend is teaching her about rocks? Something about igneous formations?" It took Ethan a moment to realize Mia had been talking about Lena. His 6-year-old had adopted a CEO as her new friend and was apparently broadcasting this fact to her first-grade class. "Yes," he said weakly. "Her friend is interested in geology." "How lovely. Well, I just wanted to touch base. Have a great afternoon." Ethan set down his phone and found Lena watching him from her office. She raised an eyebrow in silent question. He gave her a thumbs up. Mia was fine, and watched something in her posture relax. When had they developed this wordless communication? This ability to read each other across crowded spaces? 5 o'clock arrived with agonizing slowness. Ethan packed his laptop, preparing for the evening work he'd tackle after Mia went to bed. Lena emerged from her office at the same time, her jacket already on. "We could drive together," she suggested. "If that's not too presumptuous, save on carbon emissions." It was presumptuous. It was also practical. And it meant 40 minutes in close quarters, talking about things that had nothing to do with business metrics. "Sure," Ethan heard himself say. They rode the elevator in silence, the presence of other employees making casual conversation impossible. But in the parking garage, Lena led him to her Tesla, and something about the enclosed space, the privacy of tinted windows, loosened both their tongues. "I've been thinking about yesterday," Lena said as she navigated out of the garage. "About what Mia said. About me needing to get a kid." Ethan's hands tensed in his lap. "She's 6. She doesn't understand the complexities of... She understands more than we give her credit for." Lena's eyes remained on the road, but her voice carried weight. "I spent all night researching foster care programs. Adoption processes for single parents. The statistics on older children in the system. Lena. Ethan turned to look at her profile, sharp and determined in the afternoon light. You can't completely restructure your life based on one dinner with a 6-year-old. Why not? I've restructured entire corporations on less compelling data. Now she did glance at him, quick and almost defensive. I'm 42 years old, Ethan. I built everything I set out to build professionally, and I go home every night to an apartment that costs more per month than most people make in a year, and I eat takeout alone while reviewing spreadsheets. When exactly am I supposed to start living? The rawness of the admission startled him. I didn't mean, I know what you meant, that I'm being impulsive, that I'm romanticizing something I don't understand, that seeing your life for 2 days doesn't qualify me to make massive decisions. She exhaled slowly. And you're probably right. But Mia asked me what I would do differently if I had a child, and I answered honestly, and then I realized, why am I answering in hypotheticals? What's actually stopping me? Time, Ethan said bluntly. Energy. The complete restructuring of everything you've built your identity around. Do you have any idea how hard it is? Single parenting? I'm looking at someone who does it remarkably well. I'm barely holding it together most days. You saw the chaos, the financial stress, the constant fear that I'm not enough, that I'm failing her somehow. And yet she's thriving, Lena interrupted. She's confident, articulate, empathetic. She has a rock collection and opinions about igneous formations. She knows she's loved unconditionally. That's not failure, Ethan. That's success in the only metric that actually matters. They pulled up to a red light, and Lena turned to face him fully. I'm not naive. I know it would be difficult. I know I'd have to make sacrifices, but I've spent 42 years sacrificing my personal life for professional achievement, and I'm starting to think I got the equation backwards. Ethan didn't know what to say. The light turned green, and they drove in silence for several blocks before he found his voice. If you're serious about this, he said carefully, you should talk to people who've actually done it. Foster parents, adoptive parents, not just research statistics. Would you help me? The question was quiet, almost vulnerable. Would you be honest with me about what it really takes? Why would you want my help? I'm hardly an expert. You're exactly the expert I need. Someone who's living it, not theorizing about it or idealizing it, but actually doing the hard work every single day. The trust implicit in the request humbled him. Okay, he said. Yes, I'll help however I can. They pulled onto his street, the modest houses with their small yards, a stark contrast to the luxury high-rises where Lena probably lived. She parked and sat for a moment, her hands still on the wheel. Thank you, she said, for not dismissing this as a midlife crisis. Is it a midlife crisis? Probably partially, Lena admitted with a rueful smile. But that doesn't make it wrong, does it? Sometimes crisis is just clarity arriving too fast to be comfortable. They climbed out of the car and walked to the front door together. Ethan could see curtains twitching in Mrs. Henderson's window next door. The neighborhood watch was definitely active today. Fair warning, he said as he unlocked the door. Mia's been talking about you at school. Apparently you're her new best friend. I think I'm okay with that, Lena said softly. The door swung open to chaos. Mia had clearly been watching for them because she launched herself at Lena with the enthusiasm of someone greeting a long-lost relative. You came back! I told Katie Morrison you would, but she said rich people don't come back to normal houses. But I said you're different and you are different because you're here. Katie Morrison sounds like someone who makes a lot of assumptions, Lena said, returning the hug with more ease than yesterday. You should probably stop listening to her. That's what Daddy says too. Mia grabbed Lena's hand and started pulling her inside. Come see my science project. We're growing beans in cups and mine are the tallest in the whole class. Ethan followed them inside, struck by how natural this was starting to feel. Lena in his home, Mia's excited chatter, the comfortable domesticity of it all. It should have terrified him. Instead, it felt like something that had been missing clicking into place. The bean plants were indeed impressive, lined up on the kitchen windowsill with careful labels in Mia's emerging handwriting. Lena examined each one with genuine interest, asking questions about growth rates and soil composition that Mia answered with the confidence of a budding scientist. "We're having leftover pizza and salad," Ethan announced from the kitchen. "Nothing fancy." "Stop apologizing for things not being fancy," Lena said without looking away from the beans. "I told you, I don't want fancy." Dinner was easier than the night before, the conversation flowing more naturally. Mia dominated the discussion with stories from school, carefully editing out any mention of Katie Morrison's unkindness after catching Ethan's warning look. Lena listened with the focused attention that made people feel heard, asking follow-up questions, treating Mia's 6-year-old concerns with the same seriousness she'd give a board presentation. "Can I ask you something?" Mia said suddenly, looking at Lena with unusual gravity. "Why don't you have a family?" "Mia," Ethan warned, but Lena held up a hand. "It's a fair question." She set down her fork, considering her answer. "I spent a lot of time building my company, working very hard, and I told myself that I'd focus on relationships later after I'd achieved certain goals. But then I achieved them, and I set new goals, and I kept putting off later until suddenly I was 42, and later had turned into never." "That's sad," Mia said. "You should fix it." "I'm trying to figure out how." "It's easy. You just decide to be different." Mia spoke with the absolute certainty of childhood. "Like when I decided to stop being scared of the dark. I just decided, and then I wasn't scared anymore." "I don't think it's quite that simple for adults," Lena said gently. "Why not? You're in charge of everything. You can do whatever you want." Ethan watched Lena grapple with this logic, seeing the moment she realized his daughter was, in her own way, absolutely right. "You know what?" Lena said slowly. "You might have a point." After dinner, Mia insisted on showing Lena her room, the full tour this time, not just the jewelry collection. Ethan cleaned up, listening to his daughter's running commentary from upstairs, marveling at how completely she'd accepted Lena's presence in their lives. His phone buzzed. A text from Sarah's mother, Mia's grandmother. "I'd like to visit next weekend, discuss some things." Ethan's jaw tightened. Sarah's parents had been largely absent since their daughter left, their sporadic visits marked by thinly veiled criticism of his parenting choices. The timing couldn't be worse. He typed back, "Saturday afternoon works. 2 p.m. The response was immediate. "We should talk privately first, before I see Mia." Ethan's stomach knotted. Nothing good ever came from conversations that started with, "We need to talk privately." But before he could respond, he heard footsteps on the stairs. Lena appeared, alone. "Mia's showing Mr. Flopsy her new books. I've been temporarily dismissed." "Sorry about that. She can be intense." "I like intense. It's honest." Lena leaned against the counter, watching him with those analytical eyes. "Something's wrong. What happened? How can you tell?" "Your shoulders just went up about 3 inches, and your jaw is doing that thing where you grind your teeth without realizing it. You do it at work when you're stressed." The fact that she'd noticed this detail about him was both touching and unnerving. "Sarah's mother wants to visit and talk privately first." Understanding dawned in Lena's expression. The absent grandmother suddenly wants involvement. She's not absent exactly, just selective and judgmental. Ethan set down the dish he'd been washing. "Every visit is an assessment, a documentation of all the ways I'm falling short." "You're not falling short. You've been here 2 days. You don't know what you're talking about." The words came out harsher than intended, but Lena didn't flinch. "I know what I see. A child who's loved, cared for, thriving despite circumstances that would break most people. That's not failure." "Tell that to Margaret." Ethan's laugh was bitter. "Sarah's mother, she's never forgiven me for not being enough to make her daughter stay." "Her daughter made her own choice. That's not on you. Isn't it?" The question burst out before he could stop it, 3 years of suppressed doubt flooding to the surface. "I should have seen it coming, should have done something differently, been someone different, someone worth staying for." Lena crossed the space between them in 2 strides, her hands gripping his shoulders, forcing him to look at her. "Stop. Sarah's choices were her own. You are not responsible for someone else's inability to appreciate what they had." The intensity in her eyes, The firmness in her voice cut through his spiral of self-recrimination. Ethan realized suddenly how close they were standing, how her hands were still on his shoulders, how this was the most physical contact they'd ever had outside of accidental brushes in the office. "Sorry," he said, stepping back. "I shouldn't dump this on you." "Why not?" "I'm your friend, aren't I? That's what Mia said. Friends share burdens." "Is that what we are? Friends?" Lena's expression shifted, became something he couldn't quite read. "I don't know what we are, but I know that I care what happens to you, both of you. And if some judgmental grandmother is going to show up and make you feel inadequate, I'd like to be here for it." "You can't be here for that. It would just complicate things." "Things are already complicated." Lena's voice was quiet but firm. "And I'm not offering because I think you need protection. I'm offering because I want to help. Because seeing you struggle alone when I have resources and power and the ability to make things easier, it doesn't sit right with me. I don't need rescuing. I know, but maybe I need to do this anyway. Maybe I need to be useful to someone in a way that actually matters." Before Ethan could respond, Mia called from upstairs. "Daddy, can Lena help with my bath time? I want to show her my bath crayons." They both looked toward the stairs, then at each other. Lena raised an eyebrow. "Bath crayons? You draw on the walls with them. They wash off. It's actually adorable." Ethan hesitated. "But you don't have to." "I'd like to," Lena said, "if you'll show me how." Bath time turned out to be a revelation. Ethan supervised while Lena, with her sleeves rolled up and her expensive watch set safely aside, learned the intricate art of keeping a 6-year-old entertained in the tub without flooding the bathroom. Mia drew elaborate pictures on the tile walls, a castle, a garden, a family of stick figures that now included a third adult labeled Lena in wobbly letters. "That's us," Mia announced proudly. "Our family. Daddy, me, Mr. Flopsy, and Lena." Ethan's heart constricted. "Sweetheart, Lena's our friend, not our family." "Why can't she be both?" Mia's logic was, as always, devastatingly simple. "Because family is more complicated than that," Ethan started, but Lena was staring at the stick figure drawing with an expression that made his throat tight. "I'd be honored to be part of your family," Lena said quietly, "in whatever way that means." Mia beamed. "See, Daddy? It's not complicated. We just decide." After bath time came stories, with Mia insisting that Lena read one of the 3 books in their bedtime rotation. Ethan listened from the doorway as Lena stumbled through The Velveteen Rabbit, her professional poise giving way to something gentler, more uncertain. "What makes you real?" Mia interrupted at the key passage. "Do you think Lena is real?" "I'm sitting right here," Lena pointed out with amusement. "But are you real, like the rabbit? Or are you still trying to become real?" Lena was quiet for a long moment. "I think I'm still trying," she admitted, "but being here with you and your father is helping." "Good," Mia said with satisfaction. "Keep coming over and you'll be real soon." After Mia finally fell asleep, a process that took 3 more stories and 2 glasses of water, Ethan and Lena retreated downstairs. The house felt different in the evening quiet, more intimate. "Coffee?" Ethan offered, needing something to do with his hands. "Please." They settled on the couch, a safe distance apart but close enough to talk quietly. The coffee was terrible, cheap grocery store brand, but Lena drank it without complaint. "Tell me about Margaret," she said. "What are you afraid she's going to say?" Ethan stared into his mug. "That I'm not providing adequately, that Mia would be better off somewhere else, somewhere with 2 parents and more money, and..." His voice cracked. "She's hinted at it before, about custody arrangements, about what's best for Mia." "Could she actually do anything, legally?" "I don't know. Probably not without Sarah's involvement, and Sarah hasn't expressed any interest in being a mother since she left. But the fear is always there, that someone will decide I'm not enough and take her away from me." Lena set down her coffee with deliberate care. "That's not going to happen." "You can't know that." "No, but I can make it significantly harder for anyone to argue that you're not providing adequately." She met his eyes. "The compensation review isn't just about fairness anymore. It's about making sure you have the resources to prove to anyone who questions it that Mia has everything she needs. I can't accept charity. It's not charity, it's a correction. And it's happening whether you accept it graciously or not. Lena's tone softened. Let me do this, Ethan. Let me help in the ways I actually can. Why? The question was raw. Why do you care so much? Lena was quiet for so long that Ethan thought she might not answer. When she did, her voice was barely above a whisper. Because when I look at you and Mia, I see something I've never had and didn't know I was missing. Watching you with her, the patience, the love, the way you put her first without resentment or calculation, it's like seeing a different way of being human. She looked up, and her eyes were suspiciously bright. And when Mia hugged me yesterday, when she just accepted me without question, without needing me to prove anything or earn anything, I felt something I haven't felt since I was very young. Maybe ever. What was that? Belonging, Lena said simply. The possibility of it, anyway, and I'm selfish enough to want more of it. The honesty devastated him. Ethan found himself reaching out, covering her hand with his, feeling the tremor in her fingers. You're welcome here, he said. Anytime. For as long as you want. Even though it's complicated, even though I'm your boss and this crosses every professional boundary. Especially because of that, Ethan admitted, because those boundaries were suffocating me, forcing me to be half a person in every space I occupied. He gestured between them, around the small living room. This is the first time in 3 years I've felt like I could be whole somewhere. They sat like that, hands touching, coffee growing cold, the silence between them comfortable and charged simultaneously. Outside, the neighborhood settled into evening quiet. Upstairs, Mia slept with Mr. Flopsy and dreams of stick-figure families. I should go, Lena said eventually, but she didn't move. Probably, Ethan agreed, not releasing her hand. Margaret visits on Saturday? That's the plan. I'd like to be here, not interfering, just present. If that's okay, it's more than okay. But are you sure? It could get uncomfortable. I've negotiated hostile takeovers and handled activist investors. I can handle one judgmental grandmother. Lena's smile was wry. Besides, I've been told I can be intimidating when necessary. You can be terrifying, Ethan confirmed. But I've also seen you sort plastic jewelry and read about velveteen rabbits, so the effect is somewhat diminished. Good. Maybe that's who I should be. Less terrifying CEO, more person who cares about you and Mia. The words hung in the air. The acknowledgement that this had become something neither of them had planned for. Something that didn't fit into neat categories or professional frameworks. Lena stood finally, and Ethan walked her to the door. On the threshold, she paused. Thank you, she said, for trusting me with this, with her, with your life. Thank you for wanting to be trusted with it. They stood there for a moment, close enough that Ethan could count the flecks of gold in her brown eyes, see the vulnerability she usually hid so carefully. He thought about kissing her. The impulse was there, sudden and strong, but the moment wasn't right. Too much was still uncertain, too many complications unresolved. Instead, he squeezed her hand once more. See you tomorrow? Tomorrow, Lena confirmed, and Saturday, and probably the day after that if you'll have me. We'll have you, Ethan said, for as long as you want to keep coming back. After she left, Ethan stood in his quiet living room for a long time, trying to process the seismic shifts in his world. 3 days ago, Lena Park had been his intimidating boss, someone he admired and feared in equal measure. Now she was someone who read bedtime stories to his daughter and held his hand while he confessed his deepest fears. His phone buzzed, a text from Lena. I forgot to tell Mia good night. Can you tell her for me? Despite everything, Ethan smiled. She's asleep, but I'll tell her in the morning. Thank you. Sleep well, Ethan. You too. He climbed the stairs to check on Mia one more time, found her sprawled across her bed with Mr. Flopsy clutched tight. The stick figure drawing from bath time was still visible on the tile walls through her open bathroom door. Daddy, Mia, Mr. Flopsy, and Lena, all holding hands. We just decide, Mia had said. It's not complicated. Maybe she was right. Maybe the only thing making it complicated was his fear of wanting something he didn't think he deserved. His fear of letting someone else into the fragile world he'd built for himself and his daughter. But Lena had already crossed the threshold. She'd seen his struggles and his failures and his messy, imperfect life, and she kept coming back. She wanted to be real, wanted to belong to something beyond her carefully constructed empire. And Ethan realized, standing in his daughter's doorway at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday night, that he wanted that too. Wanted someone to share the burden and the joy, the fear and the hope. Wanted to stop being half a person in every space and just be whole somewhere. Wanted, quite simply, to let Lena Park into his life completely and see what happened when two people who'd spent years hiding behind walls finally decided to tear them down. His phone buzzed one more time. I'm researching foster care certification. Want to help me understand what I'm getting into? Ethan smiled and typed back. Come for breakfast tomorrow. Mia and I will give you the full crash course in real life. I'll bring the pancake ingredients. My chef insists there's a difference between store brand and organic. There probably is. We wouldn't know. Then it's time you found out. See you at 7 a.m.? See you then. Ethan set down his phone and allowed himself, just for a moment, to imagine what his life might look like if this continued. If Lena kept showing up every morning and evening, if she really did pursue foster care or adoption, if they built something together that looked like Mia's stick figure drawing, imperfect and simple and real. The fear was still there, the voice reminding him that this couldn't last, that people like Lena Park didn't really belong in worlds like his. But it was quieter now, drowned out by something stronger. Hope. 7 o'clock came too early and right on time. Ethan was already awake, had been for an hour, his mind too restless for sleep. The knock on the door found him mid-coffee, Mia still in her pajamas eating cereal at the kitchen table. She's here, Mia shrieked, abandoning her breakfast to race for the door. Mia, let me... But his daughter had already flung the door open, revealing Lena with her arms full of grocery bags that probably cost more than Ethan's weekly food budget. I may have overdone it, Lena admitted, stepping inside. She was in jeans again, her hair loose around her shoulders, looking younger and less certain than the woman who commanded boardrooms. The store had 17 varieties of flour, and I didn't know which one, so I got several. And then I thought maybe you needed other things, so I just kept shopping. Ethan took the bags from her, peering inside to find organic flour, fresh berries, real maple syrup, vanilla beans, and what appeared to be half the dairy section. This is enough to feed us for a month. Is it too much? I told you I don't know how to do this. I've never grocery shopped for anyone but myself, and even that's usually just wine and takeout containers. She looked genuinely worried, and something about her uncertainty made Ethan's chest ache. It's perfect, he said gently. Thank you. Mia was already unpacking bags, exclaiming over the fancy packaging. Look, Daddy, the strawberries come in a wooden basket. Can we keep it? Sure, baby. They cooked together, the three of them crowded into the small kitchen that suddenly felt full in the best possible way. Lena followed Ethan's instructions with the same focus she brought to business negotiations, measuring precisely, asking questions about technique. Mia narrated the entire process like a cooking show host, complete with dramatic flourishes. And now Daddy does the flip, she announced. Watch closely, Lena. This is the best part. Ethan flipped the pancake, caught it perfectly in the pan, and tried not to feel absurdly pleased when Lena applauded. Show off, she said, but she was smiling. You try, he challenged, holding out the spatula. I'll burn the house down. Not with me supervising. He moved behind her, guiding her hands, acutely aware of how close they were standing. It's all in the wrist, quick and confident. Lena flipped. The pancake sailed up, rotated once, and landed slightly off-center but intact. Her delighted laugh was worth every awkward second of the proximity. I did it! She turned, still holding the spatula, her face lit up with genuine joy. Did you see that? I saw, Ethan said, and realized he was staring at her mouth, at the way happiness transformed her entire face. He stepped back quickly, clearing his throat. Good job, Mia clapped enthusiastically. Now you're a real pancake maker. Daddy, she's one of us now. Over breakfast, the best pancakes Ethan had ever tasted, thanks to ingredients he couldn't normally afford, Lena pulled out her phone and opened a document. I stayed up late researching, she said. Foster care certification requirements. I made notes. Ethan looked at the screen, saw pages of detailed information organized with typical Lena efficiency. You're serious about this? Why does everyone keep acting surprised? When have I ever done anything halfway? Never, Ethan admitted. But this isn't a business venture. You can't approach parenting like a strategic acquisition. I know that, which is why I'm asking for help. She looked at him directly. Will you be honest with me about what I'm getting into? So Ethan talked. Through breakfast and into the morning, while Mia played nearby, he laid out the reality of single parenting. The exhaustion that became your baseline, the constant worry that you were making the wrong choices, the isolation of being the only adult making every decision, the way your entire identity reorganized around this small person who needed you absolutely. And the foster system is harder, he said quietly. These are kids who've been through trauma, who might not trust easily, who come with histories and hurts you can't fix with love alone. I know, Lena said. I've been reading about trauma-informed care, attachment theory. The statistics are sobering. Statistics don't prepare you for 3 a.m. nightmares, for attachment issues manifesting as aggression or withdrawal, for the possibility that you'll pour everything into a child who might leave your home and never look back. You're trying to scare me. I'm trying to be honest. You asked for that. Lena set down her coffee, her expression serious. I appreciate the honesty, but Ethan, I'm not naive. I know this would be difficult, probably the hardest thing I've ever done, but I've spent 42 years taking the easy path professionally and the non-existent path personally. Maybe it's time I did something hard, something that matters. Raising a child isn't a redemption arc, Ethan said bluntly. It's not about fixing your own childhood or proving something to yourself. It has to be about them. I know. Her voice was quiet but firm. And maybe I'm not ready. Maybe I need to do more work on myself first, learn more, prepare better. But I can't keep living in the maybe. At some point, you have to stop preparing and just start. Mia chose that moment to climb into Lena's lap, something she'd started doing with the easy affection of children who'd decided someone was safe. Are you going to be a mommy? She asked directly. Lena's arms came around her automatically now, no longer uncertain. I'm thinking about it. What do you think I need to know? You have to be patient, and you have to give lots of hugs, and you can't get mad when they spill things or break things on accident. Mia counted off on her fingers. And you have to make them feel safe even when you're scared too. How do you know all this? Lena asked. Because that's what Daddy does. Mia looked at her father with absolute trust. He's scared lots of times, but he doesn't show it because he wants me to feel safe. Ethan's throat tightened. He thought he'd been hiding it better. Your daddy is very brave, Lena said softly, her eyes meeting Ethan's over Mia's head. The bravest, Mia agreed. Then, with the subject-changing speed of 6-year-olds, can we go to the park today? All of us? I have to work, Ethan started automatically, then stopped. It was Saturday. The office was closed. Margaret wasn't arriving until 2. For once, his schedule was actually clear. We could go, Lena said, if you want to. You don't have weekend work to catch up on? It can wait. I've spent every weekend for 3 years catching up on work. Maybe it's time I caught up on living instead. So they went to the park, the 3 of them piling into Ethan's aging sedan because Lena's Tesla only had 2 seats. The spring morning was perfect, cool enough to be comfortable, warm enough to promise summer ahead. The park was one of Mia's favorites, with elaborate playground equipment and a duck pond she loved. Ethan pushed Mia on the swings while Lena watched, and then somehow Lena was the one pushing while Ethan watched them together. His daughter squealing with delight, his boss laughing unselfconsciously, both of them looking happier than he'd seen either of them. Higher, Mia demanded. Push me to the sky. I don't think the swing goes that high, Lena said, but she pushed harder anyway. Other parents watched with curiosity. The well-dressed woman who was clearly out of her element but trying anyway, the single dad who usually kept to himself, suddenly part of a trio that looked almost like a family, Ethan felt their stares and didn't care. Let them look. Let them make assumptions. This felt too good to ruin with worry about appearances. They fed the ducks with bread Lena had thought to bring, walked the trails, and played an elaborate game of tag that left all three of them breathless and grass-stained. Mia ran ahead at one point, and Ethan found himself walking beside Lena in comfortable silence. "This is nice," she said quietly. "I can't remember the last time I did something like this. Just existed. No agenda, no objectives. It's called leisure. I hear it's popular among people who have work-life balance. Is that what this is? Because it feels revolutionary." Ethan smiled. "That's because you've been doing life wrong for 40 years. Clearly." She watched Mia chase butterflies with Mr. Flopsy dragging behind her. "She's remarkable, you know, your daughter. The way she just opens her heart to people. It terrifies me sometimes, the trust she has. The world isn't always kind to people who trust easily." "No," Lena agreed. "But maybe the world needs more people like her, people who haven't learned to be cynical yet." They collected Mia and headed back to the house around noon, stopping for sandwiches on the way. Mia chattered the entire drive about the ducks and the butterflies and how Lena needed to come to the park with them every weekend because 3 is better than 2 and you need fresh air, Lena, otherwise you'll turn into a vampire. "I don't think that's how vampires work," Lena said, amused. "That's what vampires want you to think," Mia said seriously. Back at the house, reality intruded in the form of Ethan's phone, a text from Margaret confirming her 2 o'clock arrival. His stomach knotted immediately. Lena noticed. "She's coming soon?" 2 hours. "Do you want me to leave? Give you privacy?" Ethan looked at her, this woman who'd become so much more than his boss in less than a week, who'd fit into his life like she'd always belonged there. "No. I want you to stay. If you're willing." "Of course I'm willing." They used the remaining time to tidy up, which mostly meant Ethan stress cleaning while Lena followed behind pointing out things he was missing because he was too anxious to focus. Mia, sensing the tension, grew quieter. "Is Grandma Margaret coming to be mean?" she asked. "No, baby, she's coming to visit you." "But you're worried." "I'm always a little worried when she visits," Ethan admitted, "but it'll be fine." Mia didn't look convinced. She retreated to her room with Mr. Flopsy, and Ethan heard her talking to the stuffed rabbit in the low, serious voice she used when working through big feelings. "Tell me about Margaret," Lena said, perching on the arm of the couch. "What's the worst-case scenario here?" "That she decides I'm an unfit parent and tries to get custody for herself and her husband." "On what grounds?" "Financial instability. Lack of support system. The house is too small. My car is falling apart. I work too much." He ran his hands through his hair. "I'm doing my best, but my best barely keeps us afloat." "That's changing," Lena said firmly. "The compensation review goes into effect Monday. You're getting a 30% raise and a housing allowance." Ethan's head snapped up. "What?" "I finalized it yesterday. You should have had these benefits from the beginning, my oversight." She met his gaze steadily. "This isn't charity, and it's not about Margaret. It's about paying you what you're worth. But it doesn't hurt that it also gives you better footing if she tries anything legal." "Lena, you can't just—" "I can, and I have. The board approved it." "Well, they approved the compensation restructuring for multiple positions. Yours was included. It's done." Before Ethan could process this, the doorbell rang. 2 o'clock exactly. Margaret had always been punctual. Ethan opened the door to find Sarah's mother standing on his doorstep in expensive business casual, her expression already critical as she took in the modest house, the grass that needed mowing, the paint that needed touching up. "Margaret," he said evenly. "Come in." She entered with the air of someone conducting an inspection, her sharp eyes cataloging every detail. Then she saw Lena standing in the living room, and her expression shifted to confusion. "I didn't realize you had company. I thought we were meeting privately." "This is Lena Park," Ethan said. "My friend. She was kind enough to stay." Margaret's gaze sharpened. She was a formidable woman in her mid-60s, successful in her own right as a corporate attorney. She recognized power when she saw it, and something in Lena's bearing clearly registered. "Park," she repeated. "As in Meridian Solutions?" "The same," Lena confirmed smoothly, extending her hand. Ethan works for me. It's a pleasure to meet you. The handshake was brief, professional, and crackled with unspoken assessment. Margaret was recalculating. Ethan could see it. The presence of a billionaire CEO in her son-in-law's living room changed the dynamics considerably. Where's Mia? Margaret asked. In her room. I'll get her. Ethan climbed the stairs, found his daughter sitting on her bed looking small and anxious. Grandma's here, sweetheart. Do I have to? Just for a little while. Be polite, answer her questions, and I'll be right there the whole time. They descended together, Mia's hand tight in his. Margaret's face softened slightly when she saw her granddaughter, but the critical edge didn't fully disappear. Hello, Mia. You've grown. Hi, Grandma. Mia's voice was quiet, lacking her usual enthusiasm. They settled in the living room, an awkward arrangement with Margaret in the armchair, Ethan and Mia on the couch, and Lena positioned strategically nearby. The conversation started with superficial pleasantries, school, friends, hobbies. But Ethan knew Margaret too well to believe this was just a social call. I wanted to discuss something with you, Margaret said finally, her gaze moving between Ethan and Mia. I've been thinking about Mia's future, about what's best for her. Here it comes, Ethan thought, his muscles tensing. My husband and I have a large house, good schools in the district, resources that could provide Mia with opportunities. Margaret's voice was carefully neutral. We're prepared to offer more structured support, perhaps even consider custody arrangements that might benefit everyone. The words landed like stones. Mia's hand tightened in Ethan's. What does that mean? Mia asked in a small voice. It means your grandmother thinks you should live with her, Ethan said, his voice surprisingly steady despite the panic rising in his chest. But I don't want to live with Grandma. I want to live with you. I know, baby, and you're not going anywhere. Margaret's expression hardened. Ethan, be reasonable. Look at this place. You're working full-time, raising her alone, barely making ends meet. He's doing wonderfully, Lena interjected, her voice cool and controlled. Mia is thriving. She's confident, well-adjusted, academically successful, and clearly secure in her father's love. And you are? Margaret's tone was sharp. Someone who spent the past week observing this family closely. Someone who recognizes excellent parenting when she sees it. Lena's gaze was steady. With all due respect, Mrs. Patterson, your daughter chose to leave. Ethan chose to stay. He's built a life for Mia that prioritizes her emotional well-being over material wealth. That's not a failing. Material wealth provides security, opportunities. So does love, Lena countered, and I've yet to see evidence that you can purchase that. The tension in the room was suffocating. Mia had gone very still, her face pale. Ethan pulled her closer. Margaret, he said quietly, I appreciate your concern, but Mia is my daughter. I'm not giving her up to assuage your guilt about Sarah's choices. Guilt? Margaret's voice rose slightly. I'm trying to provide what you clearly can't. A 30% salary increase and housing allowance, Lena said calmly, which Ethan received this week, along with comprehensive benefits that include educational support for dependents. Meridian Solutions takes care of our people, particularly those as valuable as Ethan. It was a masterful play, establishing Ethan's financial stability while subtly threatening Margaret with the knowledge that he now had powerful backing. Margaret's expression shifted again, uncertainty creeping in. This is a family matter, she said stiffly. Then perhaps you should consider what's actually best for your family, Lena replied. A child who feels loved and secure, or a custody battle that would traumatize her and damage her relationship with both you and her father? I never said anything about a custody battle. Didn't you? Lena's voice was gentle, but firm. Because offering to consider custody arrangements sounds remarkably like a threat, and I think you'll find that Ethan has more resources to fight such a thing than you anticipated. Margaret looked at Ethan, something complicated crossing her face. Are you really doing okay? Honestly? It was the first genuine question she'd asked, and it caught him off guard. Honestly? Some days are harder than others, but we're making it work. Mia's happy, I'm happy, we have what we need. And now we have more, Mia added, looking at Lena. Because Lena's our family too, so we're not alone anymore. The simple statement hung in the air. Margaret's gaze moved between the three of them, and Ethan saw the moment she recognized something she hadn't expected. An actual family. Unconventional, but real. "I worry," Margaret said finally, her voice softer. "Sarah left so easily. I worry that one day you'll find it too hard, too much, and Mia will be abandoned again." "That's not going to happen," Ethan said firmly. "I'm not Sarah, and Mia deserves better than to be treated like she's one hardship away from being unwanted." "She looks like her," Margaret said quietly, looking at Mia. "Every time I see her, I see my daughter at that age, and I remember all the ways I failed, all the things I did that made Sarah into someone who could walk away from her own child." The confession was unexpected, vulnerable. Ethan felt his anger softening slightly. "Then maybe this is a chance to do better," he said. "Not by taking Mia away from me, but by being a grandmother who supports us, who visits because she wants to, not to criticize, who helps instead of threatens." "I don't know how to do that," Margaret admitted. "I wasn't raised with warmth. Neither was Sarah. I thought if I pushed her hard enough, made her strong enough, she'd be successful and happy. Instead, I made her incapable of staying when things got difficult." Lena's expression shifted, and Ethan knew she was seeing her own childhood reflected in Margaret's confession. Two women from different generations, both raised in emotional austerity, both struggling with its consequences. "It's not too late," Lena said quietly, "to learn a different way, to be different." Margaret looked at her with something like recognition. "You sound like you speak from experience." "I do. I'm trying to learn what these two already know, that love doesn't have to be earned, that vulnerability isn't weakness, that letting people in is worth the risk." Lena's gaze moved to Ethan and Mia. "They're teaching me. Maybe they could teach you too." The silence that followed was different, less hostile, more contemplative. Mia, with her unerring instinct for emotional openings, slid off the couch and walked over to her grandmother. "Do you want to see my rock collection?" she asked. "I have some really good ones." Margaret's eyes glistened. "I'd like that very much." They went upstairs together, Mia chattering about igneous formations, leaving Ethan and Lena alone in the living room. Ethan felt like he'd been holding his breath for an hour and could finally exhale. "Thank you," he said, "for what you said, for staying." "I meant every word." Lena moved to sit beside him on the couch. "You're an incredible father, and Margaret needed to hear that from someone other than you. You were magnificent, terrifying, but magnificent. I told you I could be intimidating when necessary." She smiled slightly. "Though I think the vulnerability worked better than the intimidation. Recognizing her own pain, acknowledging it, that's what got through. You saw yourself in her. Didn't you see it too? Two people raised to equate love with achievement, affection with weakness. Both of us trying to figure out how to be different." Lena looked toward the stairs where they could hear Mia's excited voice. "She's brave, your mother-in-law. Admitting she failed. That takes courage." "So is what you're doing," Ethan said quietly. "Deciding to change your entire life, pursuing foster certification, being here with us when you could be anywhere." "There's nowhere else I want to be." The words settled between them, heavy with implication. Ethan thought about the past week, how completely Lena had integrated into their lives, how natural it felt to have her here, how much he'd started to depend on her presence, look forward to it, need it. "I need to tell you something," he said carefully. "And I don't know if it's too soon or inappropriate given our professional relationship, but I can't keep not saying it." Lena's expression grew cautious. "Okay. This," he gestured between them, "stopped being just friendship somewhere around the second pancake breakfast. And I've spent the past 3 days trying to convince myself that I'm reading too much into it, that you're just being kind, that it doesn't mean what I think it means. But then you show up at 7 a.m. with 17 types of flour, and you defend me to Margaret like you're part of this family, and you talk about Mia like she's yours too, and I can't—" He stopped, running out of words. "Can't what?" Lena's voice was very quiet. "Can't keep pretending this feels normal. Can't keep pretending I don't look at you and see someone I could—" He caught himself, the words too big, too soon. "Someone I care about, more than professionally appropriate, more than friendship allow. Lena was silent for a long moment, her face unreadable. Then she reached out and took his hand, her fingers threading through his. I bought 17 types of flour, she said, because I wanted an excuse to be here at 7 a.m. I defended you to Margaret because the thought of anyone trying to take Mia away from you made me irrationally angry. And I talk about Mia like she's mine because somewhere in the past week, I've started to feel like she could be. Like you both could be. She squeezed his hand. So no, Ethan, this isn't normal. And it's not just friendship, and I don't know what we do about that, but I'm tired of pretending too. Footsteps on the stairs made them pull apart, though not quickly enough. Margaret appeared with Mia, and something in her expression suggested she'd seen the hand-holding, drawn her own conclusions. I should go, Margaret said. Thank you for allowing me to visit. You're welcome any time, Ethan said, and meant it. As long as visits are about seeing Mia, not evaluating me. Understood. Margaret knelt down to Mia's level. Thank you for showing me your rocks. They're very impressive. You can come back next week if you want, Mia offered. We're having dinner with Lena, and maybe we could have dinner with you too. Margaret's eyes grew suspiciously bright. I'd like that. After she left, Mia announced she was going to draw pictures of today's park visit, leaving Ethan and Lena alone again. The conversation they'd started hung between them, unfinished. We should talk about this, Lena said, about what happens next, the professional implications, the complications. Or, Ethan interrupted gently, we could just see where it goes. No schedules or strategic planning, just let it unfold. I'm not good at unfolding. I'm good at controlling variables and optimizing outcomes. I know, which is probably why this terrifies you. It does, Lena admitted. Completely. You and Mia, you could break my heart. And I've spent my whole life avoiding things that could hurt me. So have I, Ethan said. Since Sarah left, I've avoided anything that could disrupt the careful balance I built. But you've already disrupted it, Lena. You're already here. The question is whether we acknowledge it or keep pretending. I vote for acknowledging it, Lena said quietly. Even though it's terrifying. Even though it could change everything. Maybe everything needs to change. She looked around the small living room, at the evidence of their week together. Maybe this is what choosing differently looks like, what becoming real means. Ethan thought about Mia's stick figure drawing, about the family his daughter had decided they could be, about the woman in front of him who'd shown up with groceries and stayed for everything else. Stay for dinner, he said, and tomorrow and the day after. Keep showing up until it stops feeling strange and starts feeling like home. It already feels like home, Lena whispered. That's what scares me. He reached for her hand again, held it tight. Good scared or bad scared? Both, mostly good. She smiled, and it was the realest expression he'd ever seen on her face. Definitely good. From upstairs, Mia called down, Are you guys going to kiss? Because in my drawing, you're holding hands, and that's what people do next. They both laughed, the tension breaking. Ethan called back, Finish your drawing first. That's not a no, Mia yelled gleefully. Lena looked at him, eyebrows raised. Is it a no? I don't know, Ethan said honestly. Is it? Not if you don't want it to be. I definitely don't want it to be. Then maybe we should... But before either of them could close the distance, Mia came thundering down the stairs, drawing in hand. Look, I drew all of us at the park. And there's a heart over our heads because we're a family now. She thrust the picture at them. Crude stick figures under a massive heart, labeled in her careful printing. Daddy, MIA, Lena, family. That's beautiful, sweetheart, Ethan managed, his throat tight. Can we put it on the fridge? Mia asked. Absolutely. They moved to the kitchen, Mia securing her artwork with magnets while chattering about dinner plans. Lena leaned against the counter, watching, and when their eyes met over Mia's head, Ethan saw his own thoughts reflected back. This was happening. They were becoming something, and it was terrifying and perfect and absolutely real. Later, after Mia was in bed and Lena was preparing to leave, they stood at the door in the familiar end-of-evening ritual that had become theirs. Tomorrow? Ethan asked. Tomorrow, Lena confirmed. And Monday I'm announcing the policy changes at the company. Flexible scheduling, family leave, support programs, all of it. People are going to know something changed. Let them know I'm done hiding who I am to maintain some impossible standard of professional detachment. She looked at him directly. I'm choosing differently, remember? Starting with being honest about what matters. And what matters? This, Lena said simply, gesturing to encompass the house, Mia asleep upstairs, Ethan standing in front of her. You matter. She matters. Building something real matters more than maintaining appearances. Ethan stepped closer, giving her time to pull back if she wanted. She didn't. He cupped her face gently, his thumb brushing her cheek. Is this okay? He asked. More than okay. He kissed her softly, carefully, a promise more than a claim. She kissed him back with equal gentleness, her hands coming up to rest against his chest. It was brief and sweet, and felt like coming home. When they pulled apart, Lena was smiling. Mia's going to be insufferable about this. Absolutely insufferable, Ethan agreed. She'll probably start planning our wedding before breakfast. Is that terrifying? Completely, but also kind of wonderful. Lena kissed him once more, quick and sure, then stepped back. See you tomorrow? I'll be here. I know, she said. That's what I'm counting on. After she left, Ethan stood in his quiet house, touching his lips and wondering how his life had transformed so completely in 1 week. From solitary survival to something that looked like family. From professional distance to standing in his kitchen kissing his boss and feeling like he'd finally found something he'd been missing without knowing it existed. His phone buzzed. Thank you for today. For Margaret, for the park, for everything. Sleep well. He typed back, thank you for staying, for all of it. Always, came the immediate reply. I'm not going anywhere. And as Ethan climbed the stairs to check on Mia one last time, he believed it. Believed in the possibility of second chances and unconventional families and choosing to be different. Believed that sometimes the scariest thing and the right thing were the same thing. Believed quite simply that they were going to be okay. Monday morning arrived with the sharp clarity of decisions made and paths chosen. Ethan woke to find Mia already in his bed, having crawled in sometime during the night, her small body curled against his side like she used to when she was smaller, and the world felt too big. Morning, baby, he murmured, stroking her hair. Is Lena coming for breakfast? Mia asked sleepily. Not this morning. We need to get to the office early today. Because she's doing the big announcement thing? Ethan blinked. How do you know about that? I heard you guys talking on the phone last night. You said she was changing everything at work so people could be with their families more. Mia propped herself up on one elbow, looking at him seriously. That's because of us, isn't it? Because she saw how hard it is for you? The perceptiveness of children never ceased to amaze him. Partly because of us, but also because she realized a lot of people were struggling and she wanted to help. She's good at helping, Mia smiled. And she's good at kissing too, right? Mia! I saw through the railing when I came down for water. You were standing really close and then you kissed, and it looked nice. She tilted her head. Are you going to marry her? Ethan sat up, running a hand through his hair. Sweetheart, it's way too early to talk about marriage. We're just seeing what happens. But you love her. He stopped, the words catching in his throat. Did he love Lena? After 1 week? It was too fast, too soon, completely irrational. And yet, I care about her very much. That's not the same thing. No, Ethan admitted quietly. It's not. They got ready for the day with practiced efficiency, though Ethan's mind was elsewhere. Today, Lena would stand in front of the entire company and announce changes that would fundamentally alter Meridian Solutions' culture. Changes inspired, at least in part, by what she'd witnessed in his small, chaotic home. The thought made him nervous in ways he couldn't quite articulate. At the office, the atmosphere was charged with anticipation. Word had spread that the CEO was making a major announcement, and speculation ran rampant. Ethan fielded questions he couldn't answer, watched Lena through her glass walls as she prepared, saw the determination in the set of her shoulders. At 9 o'clock, everyone gathered in the main conference hall. Lena stood at the podium looking every inch the formidable CEO in her charcoal suit and severe hair, But Ethan could see the woman underneath now, the one who'd learned to flip pancakes and sat on bathroom floors sorting plastic jewelry. "Thank you all for coming," Lena began, her voice carrying the authority that had built an empire. "I'm here today to announce significant changes to our company policies, changes that are long overdue." She clicked to the first slide, and Ethan's breath caught. The presentation was titled "Choosing People First, a Cultural Transformation." "For 10 years, I've run this company on the principle of excellence through dedication. We've prided ourselves on being available 24/7, on putting the company's needs first, on measuring success through productivity metrics and revenue growth." Lena paused, her gaze sweeping the room. "And we've been successful by those metrics, but we've also lost sight of something fundamental, that this company is made of people, not just employees, people with lives and families and needs that extend beyond these walls." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. This was unprecedented. Lena Park didn't do vulnerability. She didn't admit mistakes. "I recently had the opportunity to see firsthand how our culture impacts our people," Lena continued, "to witness the impossible balancing act we ask of parents, caregivers, anyone with responsibilities beyond work. And I realized that by demanding total professional dedication, we've been asking our people to choose between their jobs and their lives. That's not sustainable. More importantly, it's not right." She clicked to the next slide, revealing a comprehensive list of new policies. Flexible scheduling, remote work options, 12 weeks of paid parental leave for all parents, not just mothers, subsidized childcare, emergency family leave, mental health support programs. The room erupted in shocked whispers. Jennifer from accounting was openly crying. Marcus Chen looked stunned. "These changes take effect immediately," Lena said firmly, "and they're non-negotiable. I built this company in the image of my own life, demanding, isolating, measuring worth through achievement alone. But I'm learning that there's a different way to lead, a way that recognizes that our people's humanity isn't a liability to be managed, but the very thing that makes us strong." Ethan felt dozens of eyes turning toward him, saw the speculation, the understanding dawning. They knew. Of course they knew. The CEO doesn't overhaul company culture without a reason, and Ethan's sudden visibility in her life hadn't gone unnoticed. "Some of you may wonder what prompted this change," Lena said, and her eyes found Ethan's across the crowded room. "The truth is, I met someone who showed me what I was missing. Someone who's been working for this company for 3 years while simultaneously raising a child alone, hiding that struggle because our culture didn't make room for it. Someone whose dedication to both his job and his family put my own priorities in stark perspective." The room had gone completely silent now. Ethan felt heat crawl up his neck, wanted to disappear, but Lena's gaze held him steady. "I'm not going to name names," she continued, "because this isn't about one person. It's about all of us. How many of you have hidden parts of your lives to appear more committed? How many have missed important moments with your families because you were afraid of being seen as less dedicated? How many have burned out trying to be two people, the perfect employee and the present parent, partner, or caregiver?" Hands began to rise, slowly at first, then more. By the time Lena finished speaking, at least half the room had their hands up. "Exactly," Lena said softly. "We've been doing this wrong, and starting today we're doing it differently. I'm doing it differently, because I've learned that life is too short to spend it all in the office, and success means nothing if you're too isolated to share it with anyone who matters." She outlined the implementation timeline, the support resources, the expectations moving forward. Then she opened the floor for questions. "Will this affect our competitive position?" someone from sales asked. "I believe it will strengthen it," Lena replied. "Happy, supported employees are more productive, more innovative, more committed. We're not lowering our standards, we're raising them by including humanity in the equation." "What about clients who expect 24/7 availability?" "We'll manage their expectations. No client is worth sacrificing our people's well-being. If they can't respect reasonable boundaries, they're not clients we need." The questions continued, but Ethan barely heard them. He was too focused on the transformation happening before him. Lena Park, the CEO who'd built her identity on being untouchable, standing in front of her company and admitting she'd been wrong, choosing to be different, choosing people over profit, choosing him and Mia, even if she couldn't say it explicitly. After the announcement, Ethan was swamped. Colleagues approached him with gratitude, understanding, curiosity. Jennifer hugged him and whispered, "Thank you for whatever you did to make this happen." Marcus clapped him on the shoulder and said, "You're braver than I thought, man." It took an hour to make it back to his desk, where he found an email from Lena. "My office. When you have a moment." The email was time-stamped from during the announcement. She'd sent it while standing at that podium, exposing herself to the entire company. He knocked on her glass door and she waved him in without looking up from her laptop. But when the door closed behind him, she stopped typing and met his eyes. "That was quite an announcement," Ethan said carefully. "I'm told I have a flair for the dramatic." Lena's expression was unreadable. "How much damage did I do? To your privacy?" "Less than you think. People were already speculating. I should have asked your permission before making it so obvious. You didn't name me, and everything you said was true." Ethan moved closer to her desk. "You were remarkable up there. Brave." "I was terrified," Lena admitted. "Admitting failure isn't something I do well." "You didn't admit failure. You admitted evolution." She smiled slightly at that. The board was surprisingly supportive, actually. Apparently, several members have been quietly concerned about our attrition rates and burnout statistics. One actually said it was about time I prioritized retention. So no board revolt? Not yet, though I'm sure some clients will be unhappy. She paused. "It's worth it, though, even if it costs us revenue. Some things matter more than profit margins." "Like what?" "Like being able to look at myself in the mirror. Like building something I'm actually proud of, not just something successful." Lena stood, came around the desk. "Like being the kind of person Mia would draw in her family pictures." The reference to his daughter's artwork made Ethan's chest tighten. "You're already in her family pictures." "I know, and I want to deserve that placement." They stood close enough that Ethan could count the flecks of gold in her eyes again, see the vulnerability she was learning to show. "What happens now?" he asked quietly. "With us, I mean. We're still boss and employee. The power dynamic is something we need to navigate carefully," Lena finished. "I know, I've been thinking about it, and I think we need to establish some clear boundaries. At work, we're professional. No favoritism, no special treatment. Your performance reviews will be handled by someone else. Any perception of impropriety gets addressed immediately. And outside of work? Outside of work, we figure this out, together, slowly." She reached up, touched his face gently. "I'm not good at slow, but I'm willing to try. For you, for Mia, for us." "I'm not good at asking for help," Ethan admitted, "or letting people in, but I'm willing to try too." "Then we'll stumble through it together." Lena smiled. Two perfectionists learning to be imperfect. A knock on the glass interrupted them. They stepped apart quickly, professional distance reasserted. The door opened to reveal Marcus Chen. "Sorry to interrupt, but Lena, the Silverman people are online too. They're upset about the boundary expectations. Tell them I'll call back in 10 minutes. And Marcus, get used to interrupting me. Part of the new culture is respecting everyone's time equally." Lena's voice was firm. "No more assuming I'm always available." Marcus looked stunned. Sure. Okay." After he left, Lena turned back to Ethan. "See? Already different. Old me would have taken that call immediately, worked through lunch, stayed until 8. New me sets boundaries." "How does it feel?" "Terrifying and liberating in equal measure." She checked her watch. "You should go. We both have actual work to do. But tonight, dinner at your place, I'll bring something that isn't pizza or pancakes." "You cooking?" "I'm going to attempt cooking. Fair warning, it might be inedible." "We'll order backup pizza," Ethan said, grinning. "See you at 6? 6 o'clock. I'll even leave the office on time." As Ethan left her office, he felt eyes following him through the workspace. The speculation would be intense, the gossip rampant. But for the first time in 3 years, he didn't care about hiding. Lena had just stood in front of the entire company and essentially announced that he mattered enough to change her entire approach to business. Hiding seemed pointless now. The rest of the day passed in a blur of meetings and messages and the constant hum of change rippling through the company. People were excited, nervous, hopeful, Parents were crying with relief. Younger employees were reassessing their futures with the company. The culture Lena had built over 10 years was transforming before their eyes. At 5:30, Ethan packed his laptop and headed out, something he'd never done before. Always, he'd stayed until 6 or 7, squeezing in extra work before collecting Mia from aftercare. But today, he left on time. Because he could now. Because the culture said it was okay. He picked up Mia from school, where she launched into immediate interrogation. Did Lena do the thing? Did she change everything? She did. And people were happy? Very happy. Because of us. Ethan pulled her close as they walked to the car. Because of a lot of things. But yes, partly because of us. Because Lena saw how we live and realized people needed more support. So we helped? You helped. You and your big heart, and your drawings, and your questions about why rich people don't know how to be family, said. He kissed the top of her head. You helped her remember how to be human. Mia was quiet for a moment, processing. Is she coming to dinner? She is, and she's bringing food she cooked herself. Is it going to be gross? Probably a little, but we'll eat it anyway because she tried. That's what you tell me about my art projects when they're ugly. Exactly the same principle. At home, Ethan did something else unprecedented. He didn't immediately open his laptop. Instead, he played with Mia, helped her with homework, let himself be present without the constant pull of work emails demanding attention. It felt strange and wonderful. Lena arrived at 6:15 with bags of groceries and an expression of determination. I'm making chicken parmesan, she announced. I watched 3 YouTube videos and bought all pre-measured ingredients. How hard can it be? Famous last words, Ethan murmured, but he let her take over his kitchen. The cooking process was chaotic. Lena approached it like a science experiment, measuring precisely, following instructions to the letter, and still somehow ending up with flour everywhere and chicken that was simultaneously burnt on the outside and undercooked in the middle. This is a disaster, she said, staring at the smoking pan. It's an attempt, Ethan corrected, rescuing the meal. And attempts are how we learn. I'm used to being good at things immediately. I know, but this is you being human, imperfect, real. He bumped her shoulder with his. It's progress. They salvaged what they could and supplemented with the emergency pizza Ethan had wisely ordered. Over dinner, Lena told Mia about the announcement, translating corporate speak into 6-year-old terms. So now all the mommies and daddies who work at your company can see their kids more? Mia asked. Exactly. And people who need to take care of sick family members, or who need mental health breaks, or who just need to be humans with lives. They all get support now. Because you learned that people need people? Yes, Lena said softly. I learned that people need people, and that I need people too. Mia reached across the table and took Lena's hand. You have us now. You're not alone anymore. The simple statement made Lena's eyes glisten. No, I'm not alone anymore. After dinner, after Mia was in bed following another elaborate bedtime routine that Lena was learning to navigate, Ethan and Lena found themselves on the couch again. Their spot, apparently. I got a call from Margaret today, Ethan said. She apologized. Actually apologized for threatening custody. Said seeing us together made her realize she was projecting her own failures onto our situation. That's good, right? It's huge. She's never apologized for anything in the entire time I've known her. He shook his head. She wants to have regular visits, actually be a grandmother instead of an inspector. You did that. You and your stubborn insistence on doing this alone until you showed her a better way. I think we did that. Together. Ethan turned to face her. I need to tell you something, and it's going to sound crazy because it's only been a week. Lena's expression grew cautious. Okay. I love you. The words tumbled out too fast, too raw. I know it's too soon, and it's probably just adrenaline or proximity or the intensity of everything that's happened, but I can't keep not saying it. I love you. The way you show up every day trying to figure this out. The way you're not afraid to fail at cooking or parenting advice. The way you look at Mia like she's the most important person in the world. The way you changed your entire company because you saw we needed help. He took a breath. I love you, and I don't expect you to say it back. I just needed you to know. Lena was very still, her eyes wide. For a terrible moment, Ethan thought he'd ruined everything. Then she laughed, a surprised, delighted sound. You're right, it is crazy. It's been 1 week. I've only known Mia for 7 days. This is the fastest, most illogical thing I've ever done. She cupped his face in both hands. And I love you too, both of you, completely, irrationally, terrifyingly. Yeah? Yeah. She kissed him, deeper than before, with the certainty of decisions made. I want this, Ethan. All of it. The chaos and the complications, and the burnt chicken and the bedtime stories. I want family dinners and Mia's rock collections and your terrible coffee. I want to learn how to be someone's person. You already are, Ethan said against her lips. You've been our person since the moment you showed up with Mr. Flopsy. They stayed like that for a long time, wrapped together on the couch, talking about the future in careful, hopeful terms. Lena shared her foster care research, the classes she'd signed up for, her plan to start the certification process. Ethan told her about his fears and hopes, his dreams of giving Mia siblings, of building something that looked like the family his daughter kept drawing. I'm going to be terrible at this, Lena warned. I'll work too much and forget important things, and probably traumatize some poor foster kid with my complete lack of parenting experience. You'll learn. We both will. Together. Together, Lena echoed. I like the sound of that. Upstairs they heard Mia call out. A nightmare, probably. Ethan started to rise, but Lena stopped him. Let me? She asked. I want to try. He watched her climb the stairs, heard her gentle voice soothing his daughter, and felt something in his chest expand. This was what choosing differently looked like, what becoming real meant. When Lena came back down 20 minutes later, she was smiling. She wanted to make sure I knew that if I'm going to be part of the family officially, I need to learn the words to all her favorite songs. Apparently there's a quiz. She's thorough. She's perfect. Lena sat back down beside him. They're all perfect, the moments I've been missing. The small things that make up a life. They're here whenever you want them, Ethan said. We're here. I know. She rested her head on his shoulder. And I'm not going anywhere, even when it gets hard, even when I mess up, even when the newness wears off and it's just ordinary life. Especially then, Ethan agreed, because ordinary life is what I'm offering. Not grand gestures or perfect moments. Just showing up every day, choosing each other. I'm good at showing up, Lena said. It's the rest I need to learn. Then we'll teach each other. They sat in comfortable silence as the evening deepened around them, the house settling into quiet. Somewhere upstairs, Mia slept peacefully, secure in the knowledge that her family had grown. Outside, the neighborhood wound down for the night, and inside, two people who'd spent years hiding behind walls let themselves be seen completely. Stay, Ethan said quietly. Not just tonight. Stay. Move in. Be part of this. Make it official. That's fast. Everything about us has been fast. Why stop now? Lena pulled back to look at him. You're sure that's a big step? I'm sure Mia's sure. The only question is whether you're sure. She was quiet for a long moment, and Ethan could see her turning it over, examining it from all angles the way she approached everything. Then she smiled, that real, unguarded smile that transformed her entire face. I'm sure, she said, completely, irrationally, terrifyingly sure. So is that a yes? That's a yes. To moving in, to being part of this family, to all of it. She kissed him softly. To choosing differently and becoming real and everything that comes with it. Even the burnt dinners and financial stress and occasional visits from judgmental grandmothers? Especially those. They're part of the package. Lena's expression grew serious. I meant what I said at the announcement. Life's too short to spend it isolated. I want mess and noise and people who matter. I want this. Then it's yours, Ethan said simply. We're yours. They stayed up late that night, planning logistics and timelines, talking about the practical realities of combining lives. Lena's luxury apartment would be sold or sublet. Her minimal possessions would fit easily into Ethan's small house, though they agreed to start looking for something bigger. A place with that backyard Mia wanted, room for foster children when Lena was ready. I have money, Lena said carefully. Significant money. And I know you're proud, but I'm learning to accept help, Ethan interrupted, to let people in. If you want to contribute to a bigger house or Mia's education or whatever else, I won't fight you on it. Really? Because the stubborn set of your jaw suggests otherwise. Okay, I might fight you a little, but I'll try to lose graciously. I'll take it. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of adjustment and change. Lena moved in gradually, her designer suits hanging next to Ethan's off-the-rack shirts, her expensive skincare products cluttering the bathroom counter. She learned the morning routine through trial and error, burned toast, and forgot permission slips, and once accidentally sent Mia to school in her pajama top. But she showed up. Every morning, every evening, through tantrums and homework struggles and the ordinary chaos of family life. She attended foster care training classes with fierce determination, studied parenting books like they were corporate strategy guides, and slowly transformed from someone who didn't know how to be part of a family into someone who couldn't imagine being without one. At work, the changes rippled outward. Productivity didn't drop, it increased. Turnover decreased. Employee satisfaction scores skyrocketed. Other companies started calling, asking about Meridian Solutions' innovative family-friendly policies. Lena gave interviews about work-life integration, about the false choice between professional success and personal fulfillment, about choosing to build companies that valued humanity. And through it all, Ethan watched her bloom, watched the severe CEO soften into someone who laughed easily, who knew how to play, who cried during Disney movies and learned to braid hair and gradually became the person she'd never let herself be. 6 months later, on a Saturday morning that felt like any other, Lena sat at the kitchen table with Mia, helping with a school project about families. "Who's in your family?" Mia read from her worksheet. "Well, there's you and Daddy," Lena said, counting on her fingers, "and Mr. Flopsy, obviously, and Grandma Margaret when she visits, and—" She paused, looking at Ethan. "Should we tell her?" Ethan's heart jumped. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." Lena pulled out her phone, showed Mia a picture of a 7-year-old boy with dark eyes and a cautious smile. "This is Marcus. He's been in foster care for 2 years, and if everything goes well, he's coming to live with us next month." Mia's eyes went wide. "I'm getting a brother?" "If you want one. He's had a hard time, so he might need patience and understanding. But yes, if everyone agrees, you're getting a brother." "Does he like rocks?" "I don't know yet. You'll have to teach him." Mia threw her arms around Lena's neck. "We're going to be the best family ever. I'll share my room and my toys and everything." Ethan watched them, his throat tight with emotion. This was what choosing differently looked like, what becoming real meant. Not perfection, but presence. Not having all the answers, but showing up anyway. Not avoiding risk, but embracing it for the sake of love. Lena caught his eye over Mia's head, and in her gaze he saw everything they'd built together, the fear and the hope, the stumbling and the growth, the choice to let walls crumble and hearts open. "Thank you," she mouthed silently. "For what?" he mouthed back. "For letting me in. For teaching me how to live." He smiled and mouthed back, "Thank you for staying." Because that was the heart of it, wasn't it? The staying, the showing up day after day, through burnt dinners and difficult conversations and the ordinary moments that made up a life. The choosing each other again and again, even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. That evening, after Mia was in bed and they were curled together on the couch in what had become their ritual, Lena spoke softly. "I never thought I could have this. A family. People who loved me not for what I achieved, but for who I am. I thought I'd missed my chance, that I'd prioritized the wrong things for too long. And now? Now I know that it's never too late to choose differently, that the life I thought I wanted was just the only one I could imagine." She turned to face him. "You and Mia, you didn't just let me into your family. You showed me how to be human again, how to be real." "You did that yourself," Ethan said. "We just gave you permission to try." "No. You gave me more than permission. You gave me belonging, purpose, love without conditions." Her voice grew thick. "You gave me everything I'd been missing without knowing it existed." "So did you," Ethan whispered. "Before you, I was so busy surviving I forgot about living. so focused on keeping Mia safe that I forgot she needed to see me happy too. You didn't rescue us. You reminded me we were allowed to want more than just getting by." They sat in silence, wrapped in the peace of a shared life. Upstairs, Mia slept soundly. In the kitchen, Lena's burnt attempt at cookies sat cooling on the counter, getting better, slowly, with practice. On the fridge, Mia's latest drawing showed 4 stick figures now, labeled Daddy, MIA, Lena, and Marcus, all holding hands under a rainbow. This was the life they'd chosen. Imperfect, complicated, full of challenges yet to come. Marcus would be difficult, they knew that. The integration would take time and patience and probably therapy for everyone involved. There would be setbacks and struggles and moments of doubt. But there would also be this: quiet evenings on the couch, breakfast chaos, bedtime stories, and the steady accumulation of ordinary moments that made up an extraordinary life. There would be love, freely given and gratefully received. There would be family, chosen and built and fiercely protected. There would be belonging. "I love you," Lena said into the comfortable silence. "I love you too," Ethan replied. "Thank you for knocking on my door that morning. Thank you for opening it. Always," he promised. "I'll always open the door for you." And he meant it, because that's what love was, in the end. Not grand gestures or perfect moments, but the choice to keep opening doors, to keep showing up, to keep choosing each other through every season and challenge. It was burnt cookies and braided hair and rock collections. It was policy changes and foster care classes and learning to be vulnerable. It was 2 people who'd spent years hiding, deciding that being real was worth the risk. It was a 6-year-old girl's stick figure drawing coming to life, one imperfect day at a time. Outside, the neighborhood settled into night. Inside, a family, unconventional and imperfect and absolutely real, settled into the life they'd built together. And if anyone had asked Ethan in that moment what happiness looked like, he would have pointed to this: Lena in his arms, Mia safe upstairs, a picture of their soon-to-be son on the fridge, and a future full of ordinary, extraordinary moments stretching ahead. This was enough, more than enough. It was everything. And it all started with a knock on the door at 7:13 on a Wednesday morning, when the CEO stood on his doorstep holding a stuffed rabbit, and both their lives began again.